Hello, hello. Ah, hello. I
Hi, how
forgot
are
to
you?
undeafen.
That's okay. I'm just sitting here vibing.
I'm
Cool.
so good. How are you? I'm just gonna hold on. I did not do your crop. We're editing this live. I did not do your little
Ooh,
crop for your webcam justice. We're just gonna
you're good.
gonna slide you up. There we go. We're good.
Hell yeah.
We're good.
Hell yeah.
Got all of you.
You want the full wide screen?
I know. Well, that was the thing, right? Like, I
Yeah,
finally have one of those webcams that doesn't like zoom in super far into my face. So,
that's good.
yeah, I feel like I moved up in the world with no longer with the Microsoft HD 3000, whatever the heck it was.
I haven't even got like a name brand one. Mine's like one of those ones on Amazon that's like the Amazon tech stuff. So it's like Aukey, I think is the brand. It's like a Logitech offshoot.
Okay,
Fake. Fake out Logitech,
I
yeah.
love this. No,
Yeah.
you're like a fake fan.
I'm fake as hell.
I
I'm
did
on here
get
to say, yeah.
I got a flag that you're very quiet. Did that fix the issue, Ashley?
Okay.
I've
I
done
am I am a quiet person, I am afraid to say.
Okay, you're quiet, I'm loud. This is not a good combination.
Okay, well, this has been really fun. I'll see you later. No, that's
Okay.
great.
Okay. No, well, I'm really glad actually that someone said something because I didn't record my audio right away. I would have gone this whole time with no audio recording, and I think I would have cried.
Oh shoot, yeah, that would have been super bad. That would have been really, really bad. I thought you were going to talk about your Assassin's Creed flag, and I was like, well, I would love to talk about your flag.
Oh, all right. Well, that is new. We have just put it up. I also have the option of
Yeah.
a black flag. So,
Black
one of the
flag flag?
two. Yeah, black
What is that? Is
flag.
it just a black flag?
It's like a
Or does it
pirate
have stuff
theme.
on it? Okay,
No,
it's
it's a pirate
pirate.
theme.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
but it has the Assassin's Creed logo. But I thought the American one was kind of funner because I was like, Piper's American. Like,
I am, and I love Assassin's Creed, so there you
yeah,
go.
yeah. We'll
Is there a
just
Canadian Assassin's Creed flag?
not yet. Maybe in the
Oh,
future.
bummer.
I'm hoping
Bummer,
so.
dude.
I'm hoping so.
Yeah. Yeah. Fingers crossed. I'm holding out hope. I'll hold my breath.
Okay, so Piper. For those of you
Yes.
who don't know Piper, first of all, let's start with that. Piper, you still do stand up?
I that's a loaded question. No, I do. In theory, I really, really get back into it. So I had done stand up for about 6 years before I started streaming, and I started streaming because I couldn't do stand up anymore,
Mm,
which I've definitely talked at length about how it's like very much shows were shutting down in 2020, like people couldn't do them anymore, and so I was like, well, like how do I talk to a lot of people
hmm
at the same time, but also like I was playing a lot of games and stuff, so I was like, let's just try streaming. Like let's give it a shot. And so that sort of like transitioned into that, and so then it sort of replaced that in my life. But now as shows have been opening back up, it's been an interesting thing trying to find that balance between okay, when do I stream and when do I do stand up and when can I do improv, and like when can I do these things that were so important to me and like how do I find that balance in this new post COVID era. It's not post yet, but
But that's the tricky part too,
yeah.
right? Because all workplaces are like, "Oh, COVID's over now." It's like, is
Right? You're
it?
like, is it? I don't know. Like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, are
I don't
are
know.
we done with it? I don't want to go too far down that path, but are we
Oh,
really
for sure.
done with
Yeah,
it?
I was shocked. I went to go get this nose dealio put back in, and the place was everyone in there was wearing a mask, and it was like
Wow.
almost shocking to me. They
Yeah.
like have to come let you in. Everyone was wearing a mask, and I was like, still? Like it was kind of amazing. I
Mhm.
was kind of like, okay, like I respect this. Like they're committed. They're committed to the safety protocol and stuff. But also like, they're all up in your face, so you might as well have them be protected.
Oh, absolutely. No, I
Yeah.
can I still wear mine on like public transport or if I'm going
Oh,
into
of
grocery
course.
stores, really public spots. I'm like, all right. But
Yeah.
working an outside job, like I've never really had to experience wearing it for like 10 hours a day. So I really admire
Yeah.
people who did. That
Oh
would
my
be,
gosh, I
yeah.
know. I know. And like people are still you're like, well, the surgeons are like, well, nothing's changed. Uh we've been in office, we'll keep being in office, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. So to answer your question, Sort of. I want to get back into it. I want to get back into doing stand up more. But I've been trying to slowly but surely. I think I've been doing more improv than stand up this moment in time.
Will we ever get to see Piper as part of the Savannah Bananas? Will you learn baseball?
I played softball for most of my life. So yeah, I could get on the Savannah
Okay,
Bananas for sure. I'll try out. Are they having open tryouts and will they
no
accept women?
idea. No idea.
Okay.
Have
Do
no.
I have to do a league of their own for myself? Like is what I need to know.
It came up because someone, I just thought of it. I was watching
Yeah.
someone else's stream and someone mentioned in chat the Savannah Bananas, and I was like, I want to go so bad to the Savannah
Oh
Bananas.
my God, come to Georgia. I'll take you. I've
It
never
just
been, but I would love to go.
it
It's still a 4-hour drive, but
it looks wild. No, I was like, that's something that
seems like a
needs to
really good time.
happen. Yeah. So I don't know. Piper Savannah Bananas 2024. This is my pitch.
Okay.
Pun
And
intended.
this is your pitch. I know, and I'm seeing your pitch. I think it's a home run.
Go. Yeah. That'd be perfect.
Yeah. I'm into it.
No, but I'm super excited to have you on because I we've been talking a lot recently about like streaming, and the podcast was sort of intended to be started as mostly just about video games and the culture surrounding video
Hmm.
games and the more like in-depth thought processes, but something about streaming has really taken a hold. Maybe it's because it's a lot of streamers watching. Uh but it's definitely kind of branched into that territory, and we've talked a lot about parasocial relationships and all these different things that have sort of come about because partially
Hmm.
because of COVID, I would say, but mostly because of the rise of Twitch, right? And just how well
Hmm.
it's doing. So I'm really excited to talk to you about, yeah, like streaming as a performance art.
Yeah, definitely. And I honestly, I'm always down to talk about parasocial relationships too. So if we want to go down that rabbit hole, I have a friend who literally made the video essay on it that kind of defines the term. So I was like, it's kind of funny that she was like, oh yeah, she's the one who kind of defined it. And I'm like, oh yeah, my friend. And it's like, do I really know her? I don't know. I have to watch the
Hey,
video to find out. But yeah, streaming as performance art is something that's like near and dear to my heart for sure. Which is definitely why I kind of brought that to you. But yeah, I think it's really, really interesting. Like I said, like not being able to perform traditionally, in the traditional sense of like getting on stage and doing something. That was like my whole life. Like that was every single
mm-hmm.
night for like 5 or 6 years was just like, okay, let's go do an open mic. Okay, let's go do improv practice, like, and then we'll do some shows and then, book shows and touring and all this stuff. And so all that kind of ground to a halt, which was very hard. Harder for, I would say, Shaunik than for me. But my boyfriend, for the uninitiated. But yeah, so he also does stand up, and he's doing it a lot more as well. But yeah, it was interesting seeing how I could take those principles and apply it to streaming. And I do find a lot of similarities in the feeling of it. Specifically, you have an audience, you have a streamer who's your performer. It's definitely more interactive than I would say. I would say that like the chat is kind of a character with you or like a
Mm-hmm.
co-performer. And it's like if somebody comes in a chat and they say something wild, you have to adapt. You have to take those like that improv like yes and mentality and apply it to like, okay, now how do I react to build an experience that's good for everybody? So I guess in a sense, like it is very much a performance art, but it's also like very interactive performance art, in a way that I really, really love. That's not just like watching a TV show or something like that. And so yeah, it's been fascinating. So I started doing improv and then I find that improv has helped my streaming a lot, but also my streaming has helped my stand up a lot. I've seen it kind of feed back and forth into like now I can do crowd work with someone way easier, where you go to someone in the audience and you say like, "Oh, hey, like what's your deal? Like where are you from?" And so sometimes you can just ask them like, "Cool, where are you from?" And they'll say like, "Oh, I'm from Tennessee or whatever, like I'm from out of town." And then you just kind of leave it there, but I feel like with streaming it's made me more able to talk to people and be like, so tell me more about like let's go deeper into what you're talking about. Like, what's your favorite thing about being in town or like, stuff like that. And it's really interesting to see how it's helped me be more on my feet. Which you would think that improv would be like the thing for that, but I feel like it's kind of a beautiful like little trifecta of this performance art. So I've told so many people who do comedy, I've said like you should try streaming, you should check it out. And I would say to people who do streaming, I would be like, you should go try to do some kind of improv or stand up or anything else that has an audience. I feel like because you'd be better at it than you might think. So that's my that's my little sales pitch if you want to do stand up.
I have, I wish I'd known you were going to say that because I don't know if I could still find it, but I have a super old stand-up routine from when I was like 14. I wrote one.
Oh my
And
God.
I could have pulled it out. We could have done, I'm pretty sure it's terrible. We could have done my like iPod touch note stand-up routine.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but we'll take it, we'll punch it up. And then you're gonna start touring worldwide, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I could
Yeah,
see it. Yeah, definitely.
I can see it now. Oh my God, I love that. That makes me so happy.
I think the best part is it was magically like video game focused because that was like I was so into games. I was like, I'm definitely gonna like work in games. I'm gonna make games. I'm gonna do something
I
to do
love
with
that.
games. So yeah,
And there you go. And here you are.
and here I am, not making money off of it, but here I am.
No, I mean, who is, not me. But no, I think that's so fun. And I definitely I feel I had a lot of material that was based around games. I was playing a lot of
Mhm.
The Sims 2 at the time. And I was like, I don't know if this audience is necessarily loving this Sims 2 content, but I'm loving talking about it. So it's just like it is funny seeing how that's like your interests kind of merge in that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like you said, it really does like kind of cross over. And I watch a variety of different streamers, and I've started
Hmm.
watching some bigger streamers now because thinking about how I think I can actually make it as a content creator, which I know the
Yeah.
audacity to say that. Ooh,
How dare
ooh,
you?
who
How
would have
dare
thought?
you? Who
Uh,
would have thought?
but coming up sort of with that content and taking notes on what other people are doing, there are
Mhm.
a few streamers that I watch who I won't name, but you can tell it is it's a performance for them. It's
Yeah,
not about that. I don't want to use the word cozy community, but it's not about building that community and those friendships. It's about
yeah,
I am here to put on a show, and their streams have a very different vibe for that reason.
definitely. Definitely. And I think there's a balance to be struck with that. I agree with that sort of sentiment where I feel like I have definitely seen people who sort of put on a facade a little
Hmm.
bit. And that has never sat super right with me.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess at a certain point when it's, your chat's whizzing by, you can't, keep up with everything. Yeah, of course. Like, I wouldn't blame you if you're just like, I'm here for me and everyone else is just watching, But I do think that there is sort of a give and take, which is why I actually do tend to stay away from bigger streamers because I love the interactive part of it. And maybe that's the improviser in me. But yeah, that is really, really interesting for sure. Where you're like, oh, this is definitely for you, which is totally fine. I don't hold that against anybody. But yeah, I think the best people in my estimation have such a great balance of like, okay, I'm doing this because I love to do it, and you can tell that they really love to do it, but it's also like I want to, perform and be this character almost, or just, consistency in like what people can expect out of you. I think is super cool.
I feel like it kind of seems like the difference between the late night talk show hosts. Like, if you want a
Hmm.
performance, you watch like Stephen Colbert, who doesn't do that anymore, but
Oh, I loved him.
yeah,
Yeah.
you would watch like his show or you would watch Jimmy Fallon. And then if you wanted
Hmm.
someone who felt like more organic and like themselves, to me, Conan O'Brien falls in that. I don't
Hmm.
know why, but it's like
No,
he
he
feels
definitely
very
does.
authentic. Like,
Yeah.
so I
He,
find
he
Conan
doesn't
O'Brien's
practice.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like Larry David, like the very serious, authentic, we're here for like a deep interview. And then, yeah, you have the kooky crazies over there. And you're like, oh, look at
Yeah,
them.
you're doing a character, and that's very clear,
Hmm.
which is its own thing. I think that definitely, and they're both valid. I think in terms of content, and they're both technically talk shows. But it's just like, did you practice this whole conversation and the person brings all their talking points, or are you just genuinely having a conversation and being in the moment?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
And
love that. That's very cool though. Yeah.
I find like it's tough in terms of streamer networks too, though.
Hmm.
Well, networks, if we're going to put it
Hmm.
quotations. I've
Sure.
made it pretty open how I feel about them at this point, but
Yeah.
in streamer circles,
Hmm.
when, at least for myself, like I found myself in an odd position where a lot of my friends are just there for like community and creating
Hmm.
good vibes. And it's like, no, I'm here to create specific content and you're all just going to sit, like, shut up and watch and
Yeah.
good luck.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
we're just here now. So that's what's
100%.
happening. And obviously, like, there's still interaction, but I've made it
Hmm.
pretty known that, we're going to be like scaling back like how much I share on my personal life. And it's going to become like a
Yeah.
very like more like reserved and like looking up towards, I guess, like the people who have made it in the category that I kind of want to be in, which is someone like Hassan Abi. Nobody knows anything about that man, right? And it's like
Mm.
that's pretty ideal in my opinion. Like,
It's great. Yeah, absolutely. I do think there is like it's like, do you want to be Angelina Jolie or do you
mhm.
want to be like Anna Faris, who's like, she's a celebrity in her own right. If I saw Anna Faris on the street, I'd be pretty excited. I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I love your work specifically. But it's not like she's not stopping cars. Like she can go into a bookshop and not be like, what? Like, oh my God, she's here. Like, I think there's that level of like, I don't know. Within a niche, I think that's always been my ideal goal is like be really well known for doing something that you love to do within a certain like niche kind of fandom, and not necessarily be like, oh crap, that's ninja or whatever. Like I don't want
Yeah.
like I've never wanted that kind of thing. And people get weird, especially with women. So I totally feel that. People get very weird with women on the internet and you're like, you gotta understand that that's like a person. Like,
I've been in a lot of I've been seeing it way more, I feel, recently on Twitch. Like it's just
yeah.
exploded again for some reason. And it always seems to go through phases where like it'll disappear and then it comes back and all of
Hmm.
my friends' chats, even people who aren't women, they've been saying like weird as hell stuff and I'm like, can you like back off a little bit? Like
Right?
you're being weird, quite frankly. You need to stop. And
Yeah.
sometimes when they're told you're being weird, they do stop. But other times it just kind of escalates it and it's like gone way worse. But
Absolutely. Yeah, and that is really strange. Yeah, it's like how much of yourself can you give to this thing that is like, you're doing it because you love it. You're doing it
mhm,
you're not doing it for like attention. I mean, the right people I think are not doing it for attention or doing it for like I want to be famous. It's like if I want to be famous, I'll talk to the chat bots that come into my chat that are like, "Want to be famous?" It's like I don't I don't want them.
absolutely.
You could just buy the follows. Like that's the thing is but I genuinely I agree and I think that's really interesting. And I wanted to ask you about so you used to stream a lot on YouTube. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering about the live streaming aspect of creating that content and being, a little bit more reserved and being a little bit more pulled back. So why Twitch and not necessarily just a pre-recorded like YouTube kind of thing?
So right now I'm recycling a lot of content. That's
Hmm.
sort of what the pitch is. A lot of the people that
I
support me
like that.
are on Twitch, and I take VODs and I take clips from the podcast and I throw them up as YouTube shorts and put them on
Hmm.
YouTube. It's been going fairly well, I would say. I'm pretty happy with like the growth and the reach that it's had, especially just for starting out.
Hmm.
But in terms of pulling back and being more reserved and less about personal life, that one's been tricky because it's
Hmm.
hard to find things to talk about, I find. I don't think we realize how much filler our daily life is. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this funny thing happened to me, or oh, here's a little anecdote from 2 weeks ago, right? And you can just pull something out of your back pocket. And now it's like, I find my brain is constantly like, you hear people describe their brains, and I've always thought of mine as like the beehive, where there's like
Hmm.
constantly things going in and out in different angles. And it's like those little bees are working so hard to pull out those obscure facts about games so that as we're
Hmm.
playing games, I can be like, so this game, which released in 1998 and was made by these people, had these influences on this game for this reason why. Let's talk about it, right? Like, let's have a
Absolutely.
conversation. But it's more challenging the content, but I also find it like a lot more fulfilling, if that makes sense.
Definitely. No, I think it's creating, it's a vlog versus like a video essay.
Yeah,
Um, Both are valid and both are, unique types of media. But yeah, that's super cool. I respect the hell out of that. That's really sick.
it
Yeah, it is like it's hard because you don't know how much do you let out? How
yeah,
much do you draw from your everyday life and how much are you able to be in the moment? Like I find that if chat's going like a mile a minute and you have a lot to play off of, then like that's a lot easier than having to be like, well, this reminds me of something that happened to me when I was a kid, and it's like you're just like, how
absolutely.
much do I let out of the old brain box, versus reacting in the
When you have those days where like everybody shows up to your stream and they go feral bananas, those are the best streams because they're easy. It's like
Mhm.
I don't feel like I had to work at all for that content. You guys fed it to me essentially. It
Yeah.
is the times though when you know they're there, like, and they lurk and watch,
Mhm.
but they're not interacting, and you're like, "Oh, like, okay, now it's on me."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling like. It's a little bit more of a like, okay, this is a performance,
Hmm.
where chat can be a partner in the scene that you're creating, or it's like you're just talking at people and like hopefully they like it. You're like, I don't know. You're not giving me anything, but you just have to trust that like, no, like I'm, doing a good thing here and creating something that people will enjoy.
I find it most difficult when you're not getting that verbal feedback. Even like outside of stream, no one will like message you and be like, "Hey, like I really liked your stream," or you don't say anything on social media. You're like, I've done like a week worth of content and I haven't gotten a single piece of feedback from anyone recently. Am I still doing a good job? Like,
Yeah. No, the imposter syndrome is real too. For sure, where you're just like, is this even something I want to keep doing?
yeah.
And that's something that a lot of people run into specifically from a stand-up point of view, where it's like when your friends stop coming to your shows
Ooh.
is when you know that you're in it, is when you know like, okay, now I'm doing stand-up. Because for the first like 5 or 10 or whatever open mics that you do, they're like, yes, we love this. We support you. Like, we love this so much. And they will laugh at whatever you say because those are your friends and
Hmm.
they support you. And then when they stop coming and you're like, okay, can I make these strangers laugh? That's like, that's when a lot of people quit, which is totally fine. Like it's not for everyone. Like it's challenging. It's freaking hard. And I think that streaming is the same. Like streaming is hard, and some people, you know, skyrocket immediately, but then if they hit a plateau, what happens then? But if some people just like start streaming and then they have 3 people, maybe, show up for months and months, and then they just keep going and then they find that audience and then they start growing, like that is like, that's the key. You just have to like push through. And it's the same with stand up. It's like, it's literally so I've seen so much like so many parallels between the two in my own life that have just been like, oh yeah, this is exactly the same to me. So it just kind of cracks me up in that way. But yeah.
Well, you made me think when you were talking about that in terms of stand up and people stopping coming to your
Mm-hmm.
shows. That happens in Twitch streams. People stop coming. And then you're left on your own with sometimes this new random community you have and sometimes no one.
Mm-hmm.
When do you like choose to make decisions like from an artist perspective, right? Because if it is a performance, then streaming is an
Mm-hmm.
art form. We have to acknowledge that, right?
Oh yeah.
How do you make the choice of I need to change my content because people are clicking through and seeing it? Because a lot of people will get like let's say 60 people rolling through. How do I get someone to follow now that they've come in? You know what I mean? What is the hook? What is the catch? When do you know to change it?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I'm currently, I think, facing in terms of like my own content where, for a long time it was just that my interests in like, I loved Animal Crossing and Animal
Mhm.
Crossing, my interest and like the interest of an audience or a chat, whatever, those just happen to intersect, and that's great. Like that's like where the magic kind of happens, and then it's like, okay, well, do I catch the tail of this next trend, this
Mhm.
trendy thing, or do I feel like, is that me being disingenuous? And I think there's no right or wrong answer to that. I think it's just a personal thing. I think for me, I've been trying to stay really true to what I've created and what I've cultivated and not like switch it up in terms of like what am I streaming? Like where are the people? Which no hate to anyone who does do that. Cause yeah, sometimes you can stream a super cool trendy game that just like, is gonna come out and then everyone's gonna be there. It's guaranteed eyes. But are they gonna stick around is the question. Are they there for the gamer or are they there for me? And I think that's something that I've had to kind of grapple with is like, even when the numbers are lower, I feel really good knowing that people are there because they like me and like what I've cultivated. Is that I don't want to sound like a brat, but for real, it is like, I think I put a lot of myself into streaming. I think we all do. I think anyone who streams is putting themselves on the line a little bit. It's like kind of scary. But yeah, I do think that it's like you're working to create this thing that people can count on. And that's my goal is just be like, even if we're playing some dumb game that no one's ever heard of, like at least I've got like some people and maybe fewer people than, the hot new game, but I don't know. That's been in my head. So yeah, I think this is me figuring it out right now. But I don't know. That's a great question. I think it's just personal. I think it's just what are you looking for and what are you looking to build? There's no right or wrong answer, which is the worst part. I wish there was a right answer. Yeah. And
Well,
that's my terrible answer.
no,
Yeah.
it's not terrible at all because I think it's extremely it gives like a great insight into where especially you are at in terms of streaming because I think everyone's had those moments, right, where we see people announcing rebrands all the time, right? And how extreme do you go with your rebrands? And how do you also like play the system in a way, right? Because when you're playing through something like a game that's not quite retro but's kind of retro, do you put it in the retro tag or not? You know what I mean? Like how do you put it in something like a category that people are going to see? Do you make it a just chatting game? Something like Wobble Dogs. You can that to me that is a just chatting game. You are all watching those stupid freaking dogs move around and all you do is you just sit there and talk, right? That's a just chatting game. But
Mm-hmm.
then is it negative to put it in the just chatting category because the just chatting category is always flooded, right? Like and it goes through like all these different questions in your mind of trying to like game the algorithm in a sense when it's not like Twitch's discoverability is not good. And we know
Mm-hmm.
this. And
Mm-hmm.
that's partially on the platform, but it's partially just because there are so many Twitch streamers and it's been so popular for so long that how do they help everyone, right? You just can't.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, well, so is somebody going to be searching through the Wobble Dogs category? Is someone actively searching out Wobble Dogs gameplay? Probably not, but if somebody does click through from just chatting, it's like, oh, well, cool. This seems like a fun thing. We're watching Wobble Dogs, and it kind of shows like, well, that's who you are as a person. You're someone who likes to play Wobble Dogs, because that's not everybody. Not everybody is like, yeah, I love this silly, goofy game with these like ugly little dogs. um, but yeah, so I think it's interesting. It is that finding that balance of like where, how specific do you get and
Mhm.
why are you trying to grow this audience? Like I think you just have to get a little introspective with it, which not everyone does. Maybe it's just me being neurotic, but like yeah, I think you just have to figure out like, okay, I could stream Fortnite every single day and grind it out and try to collab with some hot
Mhm.
Fortnite streamers or whatever. But is that the audience that I'm trying to attract? I don't know that it is.
Yeah, are
Um,
you sure you want to be a Fortnite streamer?
are you
Like
sure about that? Like, because that comes with a lot more. Oh, excuse me. It comes with a lot more um stuff attached to it, I think.
it does. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount that you really have to ask yourself like how badly do I want the audience and do I want to attach myself to one game or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot of people basically. So I've got a couple different things just popped in my head. So I've seen a lot of people who were kind of shoehorned into that one category, and then they say
Mhm.
like, "I don't like being in this category. I don't like not being able to play any other games," and it's frustrating. But I think that that is something that I've noticed in stand up too. As I was talking with my boyfriend about that, where it's cool that you can have someone like a John Mulaney, right? He's very polished. He's doing these huge stadiums or whatever. Like you've got Kevin Hart doing huge stadiums. And it's awesome. But then you've also got people who are like, my favorite comedians are the ones who have like weird indie shows. Like we got to see Rory Scovel do like a little, he's got a show called The Whatever Show, where he basically just does, he has a couple people on, and then he does improvised stand up, which is great. It's just kind of riffing, which is, and he consistently draws a pretty significant crowd. He's got a good following, but he's not selling out stadiums. You know what I mean? Like he's not this huge, flashy person. And I think that that's like, to me, very similar, where I'm trying to cultivate more of a whatever show rather than like a Kevin Hart household name kind of thing. So I don't know. That's just another thing that just kind of popped in my head. But yeah, it's hard watching somebody who gets shoehorned into like one category and then they want to break out. And then you're like, well, how do you do that? Because that's a little scarier to me than having, lower numbers by doing whatever you want. I don't know.
No, I would agree with you, and it's kind of uncomfortable, the idea that like these people feel like they have to grow by just being in one category all the time. And it's
Mm-hmm.
something like I'm extremely aware of the shoehorning that happens to streamers, especially when they're discovered in that. And I just announced yesterday we're going to be playing through the whole Yakuza series, which I'm very nervous about because one, I do not stream story games ever. So I'm like, this is going to
Sure.
be a learning curve for me. And two, like, what if people like come and like die hard Yakuza people and are there for the whole journey and they're like, this is the new Yakuza streamer. And then you get to the end of it. It's probably going to be the end of 2023. You get to the end of it and you're like, okay, we're going to go do something else again, guys. Like, like like you said, like, what are they going to do? Are they just going to be like, what? Like, who was that lady? Why did she just randomly play every Yakuza in chronological order? Like, what happened?
Yeah. I mean, well then, sorry, but tough titties to them, because you're your own person and you should be allowed to do that. And hopefully, if they're on the journey with you, then they, are willing to meet you halfway and say like, oh, well, I like what you're bringing to the table, and I like that you care so much about these games. All games, I would say, even. I think that you bring a similar, enthusiasm to each, game that you play. And I think that's so valuable. And so if they can't see past that and they're like, well, I just want Yakuza content, then sorry, but hopefully you do find people who are that person who is like, oh, wait, but also like, you seem cool and I'll stick around.
Like, I just want you to play Yakuza games on repeat for the rest of your life. Like, go for it.
Yeah, like, sorry, I'm not that person.
I think there's a lot of value, though, in the Yakuza series, and everyone I know talks about it and talks about it very highly. No one I know has touched the game. And I'm like, why are we all sitting here going, this is such a great game, and none of us have played it? Like, we all respect this series so deeply. I'm gonna play it then. Like, fine. I was like, I'll do it myself. Like,
That's so funny. Yeah. Yeah, you're like, if no one's gonna play it, then I guess I will. Yeah, you're
I
gonna take that bullet.
I feel like someone has to, because we can't just sit around and call this game incredible if we've never played it. Like, I'm always sitting in the background talking crap on Death Stranding, but I've never played Death Stranding.
Oh, I have.
So, oh,
if,
what's your
if you
thoughts
want
on
to talk
this?
Death
Oh, I
Stranding.
actually do.
It is really visually gorgeous. I would say Death Stranding, I do enjoy it. I think it is such a slog. Like literally the gameplay, he is slogging. He is climbing up mountains. He's covered in like crap and he's just struggling to get up a mountain. And then there's like ghosts and there's a crying baby that you have to take care of. And it's like so deeply stressful. And I'm like, Norman Reedus, how do I get you out of the situation? Like I'm so stressed out. But it is a visually beautiful game, and I know that a lot of people, you either love it or you hate it. I don't think I love it or hate it. I think that I'm kind of just like It makes me very uncomfortable, but I think that's the point. I think that's the point of it.
I was told by someone 3 hours before you'll enjoy it. And I said, I don't have 3 hours to waste, honey. Like,
I've put a couple of hours into it. I think I like it, but yeah, it is just genuinely like, oh, this is stressful to the highest degree. Um,
I am not trying to
yeah,
like voice this opinion one more time. Like, I really feel like Kojima's been put on a pedestal to a dangerous degree in the gaming industry, and I think that's why Death Stranding got away with everything that it did.
sure.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm just tired. I'm kind of tired of it. Like, don't sit around and say this man is perfect and going to make great content for us all the time, because everybody fumbles and everybody makes a bad game once in a while. Like, let it be
sure.
a thing.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's like I'm also hesitant to say like it's a bad game per se because I think I've heard of people being like this is the game that got me into gaming and I'm like that's insane. They're like this is my favorite game of all time and I'm like all right, there's like fun games out there too, right? Like like I'm so sorry to rag on your game, but holy crap.
This is the game that got me into gaming, the walking simulator.
Literally,
Okay.
it's like this man decided he wanted to take one trip for the groceries and he couldn't do two trips. That's what it feels like. It feels like you're like hoisting fucking groceries up a mountain.
Maybe I would love it then, because I love doing one
Maybe.
trips or no trips. Like, this is
Honestly, maybe that's the game for you. You're like, let me just strap this on. I got my baby on my chest or whatever.
I I
It's
uh
wild.
I've talked about it a bit in the past, but the reason why that game really gets under my like just my skin is because I was doing I think I was managing a website at that point. I think I was the editor in chief, and
Hmm.
someone was like, this looks like the greatest game ever, and I said, what's the game? Because the announcement trailer gave us no clue as to what this game was. I was like, what's the game? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, did they talk about it all? No. What's the game? And I was trying to like get out of them like, this is a new angle, like this could be new and exciting way to write this piece of article. And they were like, no, it's just gonna be the greatest game ever. I'm like, well, you look like everyone else now. Like, everyone was saying that. What, someone stand up and say, what's the game?
Yeah.
Tell
I'll
us the
stand up
game.
and say the game is a walking simulator. You're absolutely right. But it's also got the scariest ghosts I've ever seen. They're so frightening. And yeah, the haptics are crazy. It's definitely an experience. I don't know. If it's on sale, you should look into it. But I don't know if you should buy it
I
full price.
I think it's on the I think it's on the Game Pass, so I feel
Oh, give it a
like,
shot then. Give it a shot
yeah,
then. What could you lose, Just a
yeah.
couple hours.
There's a lot of games recently I've been going through Game Pass, and I'm like, install, install, install. Don't think I'll play half of them, but install.
Hell yeah. Oh my gosh, you must have a great external hard drive.
I do, thank you. I have 2 terabytes right now of SSD. We're
Ah,
rolling in it.
uh-huh.
Connor did say something really interesting though, just to bring it back to
Yeah.
streaming and performance arts.
Hmm.
So Connor said, small intimate comics remind me of small streamers. You feel a part of the action. The big ones are just enjoying the show from a distance. I want
Hmm.
to be in the action and appreciate the people I'm enjoying the art from, not only as artists but them as people.
That's yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's the experience that I had with Rory at his more intimate show in Atlanta. That was like the most mind-blowing experience that I've ever had at a show. Was just him being he was so in control of the space. And you were there, you were still sitting in the audience, but he could like sit down next to you and put his arm around you. And you're like, wow, okay, like this is crazy. Like a guy came in late and watching him see this guy and be like, oh, well, now I have to do the whole thing over again. So he hit every single beat that he had done. It was an hour in. This guy came in an hour in, and so he beat, and everyone is like howling, laughing so hard, and he just like builds it up to this weird fever pitch, and then he throws the microphone over the rap, starts wrapping around his neck, and I was like, what is happening? Like that blows my mind, and you won't get that in like a stadium, of
Mhm.
like Kevin Hart's not gonna notice if a guy comes in like 3 hours late. Like who cares? But that was like for me, I was like, this is like I'm feeling moved. Like everyone's standing, like clapping and screaming. The energy was like electric, and I was like, this is nuts. It's like that's my favorite thing because I got such a like, who is he? as a person.
Mm.
And he's so funny, and I just like, yeah, so I just like highly esteem him for sure. Because of that. I was just like, that is so electrifyingly cool. And you just don't get that with like, that separation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people feel that way about large streamers, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, like I've been watching a lot of larger streamers recently, and there is like this disconnect. You don't get to know them in the way that you did, and I think that's
Hmm.
important, especially as someone who's sort of rethinking my career trajectory in real life. I think in terms of sustainability for a job, I think it's
Hmm.
important to look at streaming from a sustainability standpoint too, right? Whether ranging as small as make sure you create a sustainable schedule and don't go live for like 5 hours with no breaks, all the way to something like when your audience grows, how are you going to let it grow and how are you going to adapt to it? Because there comes a
Hmm.
point where you actually can't keep up with chat anymore. And that whole community that you've built, that's great. And I'm sure that some of them will be within your inner circle and still your friends outside of streaming, but you're going to lose a lot of them.
Yeah. And how do you not alienate those people? Definitely.
Hmm.
I think that's the question. That's the big question. But I think, yeah, it's interesting seeing people hitting that level. I don't know that anyone that I've necessarily gotten close with in terms of like being in their community. I don't know that I've seen anyone really surpass that level just
Hmm.
yet. But I am interested to see how it does. If somebody does pass that level, like how is it going to affect how I feel? I don't
Absolutely.
know.
And
That's really, really interesting.
people can surpass it at totally different levels because
Yeah.
sorry cat to drag you into this, I know you're in the chat, but I know no thanks cat is there, and her chat is
My
starting to
girl.
get really quickly, like it's getting quick, she's growing fast, like absolutely love it. I won't say too much cat, sorry, to just force you into this, but it's really like it's picking up pace and it's going. And I think that's a thing with every Breath of the Wild streamer because the ferals live in that category. And I think Tears of the Kingdom are gonna see a lot of kooky crazy stuff going on this Friday.
Sorry, cat.
But it goes from being like this chat where it was very slower paced, and I've loved all of her content and the way that it has
Mhm.
shifted and evolved and how she has found her thing. Like that has really helped her grow. But I do remember, like, just like when she would like be redesigning her island on Animal Crossing, and we would just all sit there and chat about your day, right? And it completely changes and shifts.
Yeah, and I think it is, and that's something that she and I do talk about a lot because
Hmm.
I do think that, um, it's very interesting for both of us to see like, okay, well, how are you feeling about, this? How is this going? And so we'll kind of compare and contrast our notes and stuff and say like, I have loved seeing Cat blow up. It's been really
Hmm.
exciting, and I love that. And she and I are obviously. I will die for her if anyone like comes for her in her chat, like being like if anyone starts popping off, like I will absolutely lay down the fucking law if I need to.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's like it is hard, and it's been really impressive seeing how she's keeping up with it and being able to like because I don't know, Breath of the Wild is such a stressful game to be like reading while you're playing because you're getting like attacked from all angles and you're like let me just pause and like it's astounding to me. Anyone who can play that game and chat at the same time is like a hero.
You're getting attacked
um
from all angles, and you have someone coming in the chat going, "Can you get Dark Link? You want to go get
oh
Dark Link? Did you get Dark Link?"
can now can you, yeah, the backseaters are bananas, bro. But yeah, it's pretty, it's like kind of astonishing. So yeah, watching Cat grow has been super, super cool. And of course, you're like, I think a lot of people are kind of like, okay, well, how can I replicate that for myself? And she and I have been very, cognizant of like, I don't know, would I love to experience growth like that? Sure.
Hmm.
Do I ever want to play master mode? Absolutely not. No, that sounds so stressful to me. Like, shout out to her for loving the game so much, but I think it is that genuine love, and like it's hard to recreate that and take advantage of that. It's like we're talking about like, do you find you just try to force yourself into this category. And I'm not gonna force myself into that category. Like, so much love. But yeah, I'm just like, I can't get attacked by these strong ass fucking bokoblins and try to pretend that I'm having fun. Like, I would be so stressed out. But yeah, she genuinely loves that. And I think that it is the genuine love that like really reads with people. So I think that's super cool.
Well, you can tell when someone's playing a game that they don't want to play. And some
Yeah.
streamers are very good at playing games that they don't want to play. And I know a couple of them, and it's like, somehow you've made this so entertaining. I feel like I'm the whiniest person if I'm playing a game I don't want to play. Like,
Same.
it's and it's a difference between like I do lean into like the crazy moments because I've learned that there's one thing my Twitch chat loves, and it is when I am on the ground like covering my face screaming.
People
They're
love
like,
watching you
yeah,
suffer, for
they're
sure.
they're like that. We came here for Atlanta to suffer. Like, and we have that happen anytime soon? Like, what's going on?
Can I recommend Death Stranding? Yeah,
I think Death Stranding would just turn into monologues the whole time. I'd be
that's
like,
fair. Okay,
okay,
but I would love
so
that
like,
too.
hello, what's going on? But
Yeah.
no, I think it's it's interesting. Yeah, the because I think the performance art ties in a lot to what's going on with Cat and what's going on with streamers as they begin to like grow and expand and blow up in a sense. Like, you have to now rely more on your ability to perform. And
Hmm.
if it doesn't go well, congratulations. Like, you grew momentarily, right? That's what it feels like
Yeah,
anyways.
I've seen people do that. I've seen people decide that they want to play a hot new game and then it kind of busts, you know? They can't keep it up. They
Yeah.
can't keep up that bubble. Like watching people who specifically I'm thinking about people who play like Dead by Daylight. I've seen some streamers who just only play solo queue Dead by Daylight for
Hmm.
hours and hours and they love it, which
Yeah.
is awesome. If I tried to do that, I feel like I would probably last an hour or two and I'd be like, I'm just not good at
Hmm.
faking it. I'm not good at putting on a brave face if I keep getting tunneled out and then, it's like I can't keep it up, but some people just like can, and I think that's so admirable. But yeah, it's more performing. It's more of that like what you're with the very shiny Jimmy Fallon
Hmm.
style late night talk show. It's like no matter what, I'm gonna have a great time, and you're like, that's crazy because
Yeah.
I'm not that strong. I'm just like like, I'm gonna be honest, I hate this, and I'm gonna end stream. So it just depends on your personal tolerance level of like how much can you really take of just like being ground into the the tunneled out of like DVD levels of
Oh,
like this is
absolutely.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know the Dead by Daylight community is so prominent, some of the support for it, because it is one of the first developers that really supported the LGBTQ community. And like,
Oh, for
they
sure.
went hard. They were like, we're here. Like, that whole joke that we're here and we're queer, like that was them in full caps lock screaming it everywhere they could.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been really valuable for a lot of people in feeling more safe in the gaming community
Hmm.
because it created a lot of streams and networks that were just people who want to help each other feel safe. But
Absolutely. And
it's,
isn't it funny that it's in the context of a game where you're putting people on meat hooks, that you're like, I feel safe here. It's like, well, it's also so scary.
yeah, no, 100%. And
Yeah.
we've spoken in the past a little bit about some of the controversy of the cozy community, which we don't have to get into right now because I remember when I messaged you about coming on the podcast, I was like, "Do you want to talk about this?" And you were like, "No, everyone's gonna hate us, Elena." And I was like, "Valid."
Yeah, but no, if I see comfy cozy, immediately my heels are raised because it feels so performative. I will say
Yeah.
that much. Because it feels like, okay, you're here to put on a show and cultivate a space, maybe not even organically. Like it feels like an inorganic GMO space of you've cultivated this, but is it really healthy? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, and then some of the sheen starts to crack, and you're like, oh,
Hmm.
this isn't comfy or cozy anymore. I feel a little scared for my life. But yeah, so yeah, definitely, it's very interesting to think about. Like, I think performative is an interesting term because it is like performance I don't think is necessarily inherently bad or good,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think that it is just the truth.
Mm-hmm.
This is a performance. How much of yourself do you put in your performance? That's up to you. It varies depending on the person. Some people are terrible performers, and some people are really good performers. And some people, like, you watch them stream and you're like, wow, there's not a drop of charisma in this person. It's just hard, and it's a reality, and that's okay. Maybe you're just not cut out for it. But I think the people that manage to bring a little bit of themselves in and like give you just a little bit, not too much, not trauma dumping on your chat, which is hard not to do sometimes. But I'm guilty as charged. But I think that people who are able to give just a little bit of themselves and still hold a little bit back and maintain that wall of like, this is a parasocial relationship that we are not going to establish. Like, I think that like what you're talking about, like the level that you're trying to achieve right now is like super admirable. In my estimation, that's like my favorite kind of streamer, where it's like you have a lot of knowledge and you're coming at it from like, I'm here to share my knowledge with you and share my opinions with you, but not necessarily like my whole self with you. Like, let yourself have a little bit.
Well, because I think we also do have to be careful and know ourselves as people when we're streaming. And one of
Mm-hmm.
my things is I tend to overshare when I'm uncomfortable with people. And I've been
Yeah.
trying for a really long time to just like cut that out and stop it. And I caught myself doing it a little bit with streaming. And it's like, I don't necessarily want everyone to know what's going on. Even if it's just like, hey, like I'm having a bad day because like something happened, like, I don't know, in a friend's life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to know that. I actually just
Yeah.
don't. And canceling stream has actually become very uncomfortable and awkward because all you get is streams canceled. See you next time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Bye.
definitely.
Like, and
And then
it's
people
like,
are like, well, we're worried about you. And
yep,
you're like, well, don't be.
yeah,
You don't worry about me. Like, sometimes I'm just not feeling it. Sometimes I just want to say, I can't put on a good show today. The energy's not there. Stream's
mhm,
canceled. So sorry. See you
yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
We'll try again.
And it's I do use the chronic illness tag because there are some things that I'll always be open about, and one of them is that I have like 2 chronic illnesses, and I just wish
Mhm.
that people would like make the connection. Sometimes it's like streams canceled. I'm having like a flare up probably, and this is the first day with it, and now I need to just like really like reassess everything in my life and get to the point where I can live my life and then come back to streaming. And people are just like, she's dying. No.
Not dying, but dealing with something, living with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, living with it and figuring out
Yeah.
what that's like and what that's going to look like. And I think people who experience things like even I would even say like mental illness, like very debilitating mental illness, will
Yeah.
understand that you really have to kind of figure out and think long term for a lot of your careers. And like, how am I going to work in a sustainable environment? How am I going to find a job that suits me and can fit everything I need? And it's really hard to check all those boxes. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
difficult thing.
Yeah. And something that I'm still trying to figure out. So if you've
Yeah.
got tips, let me know.
Oh, I've got lots of tips.
Oh, hell yeah.
There are really some interesting conversations happening in chat, though, that we've kind of been
Love
letting
it.
go by as we've been talking about the cozy space and how everything's going on, which started with cozy spaces who deny the existence of oppression. I don't think we have a lot to say on that. There's definitely that exists, and
That's
it's
true. Where they're like,
yeah,
this is my space to escape, and don't bring that in here. Which, like, to an
yep,
extent, sure.
yep.
To an extent, do I want people coming into my chat talking about an active
Mhm.
shooter situation? No. Don't do that. At my mom. Don't do that because then I'm like, well, now we're all struggling, and it's like, to an extent, do we talk about the politics of what's going on? Probably not, because that is going to be triggering for a lot of people and maybe for the streamer. But you can't just be like blind to it. And if someone's dealing with something, then you can't just be like, well, stop talking about that because we don't do that here.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like, that's a reality of it. And it is interesting. I think a lot of people are just not well suited to
Mhm.
draw that line of figuring out, what is that boundary? What am I comfortable with in my own chat? And
Mhm.
and I think that establishing that boundary up top is so important, because you can't just like shut someone down or like silence someone if they're trying to talk about that, but you can just be like, hey, let's redirect, and that's, I think, something that people don't necessarily, it doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. And it's hard. It is hard. I think I've had to deal with it once or twice, and it's just been like, this is tough.
And it's hard when you don't have that person sort of in chat to help redirect. Like my
Yeah.
strategy as a viewer is to always go wildly feral and just hope that the other person gets drowned out. Like we are
Yeah.
gonna
Oh,
talk about what
absolutely.
I want to talk about now, and no one's taking that away from me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also just I think Twitch etiquette of being I had never heard the term trauma dumping. Uh, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that like when people just come into a chat trauma dumping and they're
Hmm.
saying, now it's about me, that's when you have to be like, hey, no, it's not. This is about this space that we're trying to do. If you need to talk to someone offline, go do that. But this is like, so I think comfy cozy in it's such a weird thing because it does feel like let's all share our feelings, but not like that. You're like, oh no.
Mm.
And so yeah, I don't know what the chat is necessarily saying about that, but it has been a really interesting thing, and it's a tough line to walk.
Well,
It's weird.
it's difficult too because we all want to talk about safe spaces and pretend that they exist to a certain
Mm-hmm.
degree, but they they really don't. And
No.
they don't anywhere, not even in therapy. It's your therapist's job to tell you like you need to get over your bullshit sometimes, right? Like they sometimes need to put their foot down. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on who they're working with, of course, but that's totally up to their professional opinion on how they should deal with it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people need like there comes a point you need that really direct like nope, that's not how it goes, and that's not safe for in the way that we're
Yeah.
defining safe. That's not a safe thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between a safe space and an echo chamber. I think
Mm.
people a lot of times
Mhm.
want an echo chamber, but that's not necessarily a safe space. I think a safe space is somewhere where you can come in, say your piece, have it be acknowledged, and then put it away. I don't think that, like, I think that a lot of times, like a safe space, like a comfy cozy, is just going to be a place where everyone's like, yeah, and I feel this way too, and I feel it too, and everyone's going to dogpile. And if someone doesn't necessarily align with that, it's going to be a little uncomfortable
Mhm.
for a lot of people because they're going to be like, well, we don't talk about that here, and like shutting that down. So, but I do feel like, yeah, there's a lot more we could say, but yeah, it's dicey. It's a dicey line to walk.
And it's tough because, like you said, you need big boundaries, and that seems to be like as I'm slowly catching up on chat here, that's a lot of the consensus. Is you know the comments of I feel like the cozy performance does serve a purpose so long as the streamer is aware and takes responsibility for it. But
Absolutely.
how do you do that, right? For me, my boundaries are we're not talking religion or politics here. I love to talk about that stuff. It's some of my favorite stuff to talk about, but
Mhm.
it's not the point of this. The point of
It's
this
not the
is,
point.
yeah, it's to talk about
Yeah.
video games. We're gonna be
Mhm.
nerds, so go away.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's definitely the most important thing is also just getting mods that you trust. I feel like
Mm,
moderators are the most important tool in a streamer's tool belt is you need someone who's ready to like say stop that. We're not going to do that and be mean mommy because when you're live and you're be this person that you're like, okay, like I'm here and I'm giving you so much of myself. I can't necessarily be like, now stop. Because it's like, okay, that's like almost a break of character where you're like, this is uncomfortable because we were just joking and laughing. And now I have to be like, shut up. Shut up. Do not talk about this. Like, that's not, nobody wants that. Nobody wants me to be the one to be like, but
I
if I'm a mod, I'm like,
I love streamers who do that. I'm not gonna lie.
oh, I
There's
have
like
so much respect for that.
yeah,
It can't be me.
there's a few I know who are just like they just look like directly in the camera and they're like, we're not talking about that today, or we're not doing this today, and it's like, oh damn. Like
Yeah.
you, my favorite is when a streamer says someone banned that person, and then they just keep playing the game, and it's like, well, someone
Yeah.
banned them. Okay.
Yeah. Someone ban them. Yeah, someone do something about this because I'm not going to handle that. And I think that that's like for me, I do get so emotionally tied up in my own chat that it's hard to
Hmm.
let myself acknowledge that emotionally and then bounce back and be like, "Where were we?" Like I'm just that'll stick in my brain for like the rest of the stream, and then I'll just
I
feel
think
bad.
I think that's where that whole parasocial relationship really comes into
Yeah.
play, because as you say, like, if this is our audience, you wouldn't take your audience home with you at the end of the night in most
Yeah.
cases. Like, you don't pack them up in your van and say, "Come for a little sleepover." Like,
Everyone come hang out. Yeah.
no, that's a
Mm.
terrible choice. You shouldn't do that. It's
Don't do that.
dangerous. Like, don't
Yeah.
invite them into your personal life, and you don't do it for a reason. You do it to protect yourselves. And I think as people who, are women, or at least like very like feminine appearing, like to the outside world, however you want to put it, right? It's We understand that inherently. Like, we have that idea of, and I've grown up living in very safe neighborhoods, but I still know, like, you don't like let random strangers know where you live.
Yeah, and
Not
you don't get into
safety.
someone's car because they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, you need a ride?" You're like, "No, I don't, thank you." You
Yeah.
don't do that. And there's certain levels of safety that you need to keep up. And I think that is a lot of you know, that boundaries. Boundaries are so important, and it's hard to because you'll want to blur them because you love your chat so much, and they're
Hmm.
so sweet, and they've shared so much of their stuff with you, and you're like, well, how do I hold back? That's what I'm trying to figure out, is how do I
Hmm.
hold back a little bit more and not give 110% of myself to my chat, which I usually love to do because of the people that are in there, because it is these people that I trust, and it's these people that I've known for a super long time.
Hmm.
But then you have someone coming into your chat who you've just met like a week ago, and
Absolutely.
they're like, "You're my best friend." You're like, "No, I'm not.
No. Yeah.
You don't know me. You don't know me. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm glad that you're happy to be here. I'm happy to see you here, but you don't know me. Like, that's it. And if I say I love you to, like, you know, your sister or you or someone, and I'm like, I know you because I've known you for like 3 years and we've chatted so much
Hmm.
extensively online and offline. That's so different than somebody who's like, I'm new here and I love you. And you're like, you just ultimately don't, and it's hard because you think as chatters it's all equal. You want to be this equalizer, and you're just like, no, it's like it's just different, and I'm sorry, like I can't explain that to you, you know?
There's something about like that whole um VIP badge, the mod badge, the artist badge, the 1 year subscriber badge. Those people, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, have a status symbol, and like, it's
Yeah.
very purposeful that they do. And I think it's a great way for new chatters to realize, but I don't think they use it as such, right? Like, this is a good way for people to know that this person's been around for a long time, and they probably know like what's happening, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And also it's interesting seeing different streamers talking about their mods as their inner circle, because I will say that
oh,
that to an extent is true. You are a moderator in this chat. You are a very important part of this chat. Obviously,
mhm.
the streamer trusts this person. It doesn't mean they're besties.
No.
I think that's the main thing that I think I realized pretty early on. And I think that a lot of people need to realize. And it's a tough pill to swallow, but it's like, that's not your best friend. Like, sometimes it might be. Sometimes somebody might have modded their besties, which is great, but it doesn't mean, like, Brian has been my mod. I'll say, love Brian so much. Brian LLQ. He's been my mod for the whole time of streams. I've never talked to him. I don't know what his voice sounds like, but I would trust him with anything on my stream 100% of the time. I would give him my stream key if he needed it. If he was like, let me figure this out, I'll fix something, whatever. I'd give him whatever he needed for my stream. He's an admin on, like, but I've never spoken to the man. I don't know what he looks like. He's not my best friend. We have a very established, like, moderator streamer relationship, and I think that's also so important and like
Mhm.
so valuable to establish, like, up top. Um and if it changes, it changes, but like, I think that, we're not going to try to blur that line. I'm not like, no, come on, give me your phone number, and he's not going to do that to me, because we respect each other. It's like too much to do that. Yeah.
Okay, so all my moderators in chat, you heard the woman.
Yeah. Back up, back off. Stop texting her.
I think it's actually interesting though, this has all sort of come up organically, because the the idea of I guess moderators, and how do you know How do you know when to unmod someone?
That's a
Is
good question. And I think it's definitely it's a tricky one. I think if it's a person that makes you feel not necessarily like for me, a moderator is someone who is there to ensure the safety of the chat.
Mhm.
And I think if somebody is showing that they are not there to cultivate that safety factor, if it's someone who is unbanning people as a joke, I know that we had to crack down a little bit on that on, I think, my stream, probably Kat's stream as well. I think she was like, hey, this makes me uncomfortable. And we had to have like a chat about like, it's fun to do that as like a joke, but when it's like every single day, you got to say like, okay, well, we're not really doing what our job is here. It's like, I don't know, it's tough. It's if someone is like, maybe they have shown that their values are not aligned with the values that you're trying to enforce in your chat. I think that that's the key. If somebody is saying like, oh, well, for me it's more important to joke around with my friends, and I've had chats with people like, I've been a mod for someone and I've reached out and said, hey, I'm not comfortable being a mod because I never come around and I would rather just be a viewer. Because then you feel this guilt. Well, I personally was feeling this guilt of like, well, I can't make it every single time, so I would rather just come in, be able to chat, and then leave rather than feeling this responsibility. And I think it's when it starts to feel a little bit more like that, when it's like they come in, chat, then leave, and they're not really putting in the extra little mod effort of being mean mommy when you need to,
Mhm.
when you need someone to say like, hey, cut that out, or like, I need a poll made, can someone do that? Like, if they're not meeting those goals, I do think that a lot of times, I don't know, if it's not like a big falling out, I think that you should probably say something to the person and say like, hey, let's have a frank discussion. As much as it sucks, as much as it hurts to have like that honest discussion with someone, it's like, I just don't think that this is a match for me, and I think I might have to like unmod you. Which it sucks. And usually it ends up in someone being really mad and then you blow up. But like sometimes it does feel like, okay, well no, I needed this, I knew this was coming. Because I can't ever come to stream. And I'm not doing the job that I basically agreed to do. And it's not, that's the thing, is when you see it as like, oh, it's a sign of you're my bestie. And then you're saying, well, I'm taking away your bestie badge.
Mhm.
You're not. That's not what it is. You're just not doing the job that you are signing up to do. And that's fine. And like sometimes people can handle it and sometimes people cannot. But yeah, I think it's a really dicey. There's a lot of feelings. There's a lot of feelings wrapped up a little bit, and it's hard, and it would be silly to ignore that.
Well, I think it's tough, like as you said, when we view the moderator as a status symbol in all of Twitch, really as a whole,
Yeah.
and it becomes tough, especially because I moderated. I modded a lot of people intentionally recently. I messaged 3 of them, and
Hmm.
then the last 2, I was just so tired I didn't even message them. I just typed in /mod, and they just had a moderator badge next time they
Sure.
showed up. They never said anything about it, so I was like, cool, whatever. We're
Yeah.
golden. But I purposely did it because I realized after having a couple incidents on stream, I was like, wow, you should actually have way more than you need.
Definitely.
You should like have a stockpile of people. You need
Yeah.
them there and at the ready. But then it also becomes difficult when I had someone come in just 2 or 3 streams ago who was being absolutely wild, and I just had someone ban them. That's rude. Like, don't do
Yeah.
that type thing, right?
Yeah.
Get out of my chat. And everyone, all the mods said, I thought that was one of your friends because everyone came in here and was feral. Ashley had no idea who half of these people were when I started streaming again and would ask me after I was done streaming, who is this person? Should I have banned them? And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, we're great friends. Like, we talk all the time. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing. Cause yeah, I had a similar thing where I do mod for Kat and I did have to message her like, hey, is this cool that this person is messaging you like this? Is it okay that they, because for me, if it was a
Hmm.
random person, that would be crossing a line. And she was like, no, we've chatted, whatever, it's fine. And I'm like, cool. Just making sure that I don't have to like, dust off the mallet because I'm like,
Yeah.
I will get mean if I need to because that's, what a mod is there for. They're not there to be your bestie, but I do think that that's really interesting. And I think you're right about like having more than you need because sometimes all your mods go to sleep
Yeah.
and you get a raid and you're like, well, I guess I got to shout you out myself. And that just, it's those little things like that where you're just like, oh, well, I kind of want to, do that. And I think that there's different ways to handle it. I think that like people having like mod applications is one thing. I don't know how I feel about that. I've never had that as a person. Like as personally, I've never felt the need to do that because I've just been like, Kyle's like my most recent mod. And
Hmm.
I was just like, hey, you're always in stream. I trust you, and I trust that you would keep the chat safe and, do what was needed if you needed to. Is it okay if I mod? And he was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. I've never
Hmm.
done it before, whatever. And so I was like, okay, I'll give you like a trial period. That he, you know, shout out Kyle if you're if you're out there and you're like, I actually don't want to do this anymore. I would have no issue with that. If he's like, I'd rather just chat. And I
Hmm.
think that's to just establish like that's like an open door policy. Like I would not judge you if you were like, I'm tired of this, grandpa. And I'm just like, yeah, for sure. I just think that yeah, a lot does get wrapped up in it. A lot gets wrapped up in a lot of streaming, and it's not just for streamers, it's for VIPs, it's for chatters, it's for
Hmm.
whatever. And unless you establish those boundaries very harshly like at the top of it, not even harsh, but just like you establish them very solidly and concretely in a way that you're like, okay, my top 3 points earners are going to get VIP badge,
Hmm.
or they can earn it with chat points or whatever. Like that, establishing that up top, then hopefully it removes some of the like emotional baggage that comes with it. But
Hmm.
it's never a guarantee, And I think that like reestablishing that and making sure that everyone's still in line. Like maybe I should just check in with my mods. I'm thinking right now, I'm like, maybe I should just check in with them and say, hey, are you still good with this? How are we feeling? Are you feeling supported? Or are you feeling like there's pressure or something like that? Like just I need to keep like an open conversation. I need to just have those conversations that are like hard because I don't like when there are too many emotions that are like tied up in something like that. It feels bad.
Always feels hard to have those conversations with mods, but also like chat, I find. It's so stressful, like when you have to have like a little group announcement and be like, listen, chat, we're changing things up. And you're not sure
Hmm.
how it's gonna go, and they're all absorbing it, so like no one's saying anything, and you're just like start rambling and going on and on and on and on. And then eventually you either get a well, why the hell would you do that? Or, wow, this makes sense. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I actually can't handle doing this live right now. Like you're all killing me. You're killing
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And it's challenging because, yeah, you're sitting there, you're putting yourself out there
Mm,
and you're hoping that someone meets you halfway and you're just waiting, like waiting for you to
mm,
give me yes or no, give me a confirmation. But if no one does, then you're like, well, like that's what we were saying. Like it's just hard. And then you start filling the silence. It's like uncomfortable with it. I think that's another thing that I learned a lot from stand up is silence is fine. It's okay if there's silence. Like you don't have to just constantly be doing fillers, and that's something that I've always I think struggled with as a stand up but also as a streamer.
it's
I just have to get more comfortable with
it's
it.
learning that balance of like when do you talk
Yeah.
and when do you not talk? Because it happens all the time in my streams where I get to the end and I'm like, well, I've lost my voice now. Wish me luck. I hope I don't die tomorrow because I have to actually talk. And that happened actually most recently on like the Japan recap stream that I did. I spoke for like 3.5 hours straight, just nonstop. And I was like, wow, this was a really bad choice. Like and it's tough to find that balance though of because you don't want to be that guy who's just standing there staring because well, especially when it comes to something like Nintendo content now, look at what happened to Point Crow, right? And we've all looked at those guidelines now. You have to talk while playing Nintendo games. Like it's basically the law with Nintendo games.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and you don't
That's
want to be
true.
just that person staring. So it's like how do you figure this out? Where's that key balance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how much of it is you, filling silence, and then how much is you actually adding something to the conversation?
Yeah, how much of you is having like a good chat here, right? And I think we all kind of internally know like what fits our niche and what doesn't and what we're trying to do, because at least for me, like when I get to the end of a spiel, I either feel like that was super on brand and I feel great about what just happened, or you're like, "Oh,
That's fair. I feel like yeah, it's also hard, I think, trying to do this and be up there and be like, "Oh, did I just put my foot in my mouth?
mhm.
Or is it fine? Or is it okay? And, maybe I can be a person who can, shut down a chat member and say like, don't do that. That's actually pretty fucked up." Or, are you like, "Whoa, I that's so off brand." Like why would you say something like that? So I don't know. It's hard, and I think that we're all figuring it out. It's all like a performance is just like a ball in the air, like any
Mhm.
performance at all. That's why it's not a movie. That's why it's not a TV show.
Mhm.
Is like that's the difference between a movie and then also like I watched the movie version of I think Cyrano de Bergerac, like specifically. It's this French play about a man with a giant nose who writes love letters for this
Yes.
other guy. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
yeah. And so I watched the sword fighting version. There's like a scene where he like does this whole sword fight, and he like delivers this really cool monologue. And you're watching the movie, and it's obvious like they did so many takes, and it's perfect. It's so gorgeously wrapped up in a little package. And then you watch the stage performance, and there's this level of like, is he gonna do it? Is he gonna pull it off? Because you know what has to be done, but the audience, is part of that like give and take of energy of like, okay, is he going to hit every mark? Is he going to deliver his line the way that he wants to? And it's like he might fuck it up, which in improv is like, oh, that's funny. Now we can all laugh together. But like if you're like doing theater, it's like devastating. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it just depends on like what kind of performance you're trying to put on. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, really quick though, that
Mhm.
film, they did a film of that, an adaptation with Peter Dinklage, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, have you watched the Peter
I love
Dinklage
him.
version?
I watched it on a plane when I didn't have any headphones. No, it was I
Oh,
know. I was like, I gotta turn this off. I put this on because I know the story so well, and it would be cool to like see how they adapted it. I need to watch it with audio for
I
sure.
highly recommend it. We got to the end of that film. I was staying with my family at the time, and I made my dad watch it with us. And he was like, "I'm not going to enjoy it though." We get to the end, and he looks at me and he says, "Thank you for making me watch this." And I was like, "That's right. I
Let's
picked a good
go!
movie."
I did it!
Oh, it was so beautiful though. I really
Incredible
recommend it.
story.
I've told a lot of people to watch the Peter Dinklage version because you have to get past his singing, which was like when it first
Yeah.
started, but then you get to the end and you're like, this is actually incredibly heartbreaking. It's not funny. Like,
No, it's a terrible, terrible story. I mean, in a beautiful way, but wrenching. It's heart
yeah.
wrenching. No, I think I watched some black and white version in French. I think we watched it in a French
Hmm.
class or something. But yeah, so funny. I don't know. I was gonna look up what year the other version came out, but I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah, no, it's a yeah, like I said though, just a really, really beautiful adaptation and film. But
Yeah,
going back sort of to
yeah.
the recorded versus the non-recorded version, right? Like you said, like
Hmm.
it's actually interesting. So we are talking about the cozy space, and I find cozy streamers, as we've said, do not shut problematic people down frequently.
Hmm.
And I think that's why a good moderation team is so important, because they will be there, right? You can absolutely be a cozy streamer. And I watch some cozy streamers, right, in quotations or whatever you want to call them, and they're really great spaces, but they also have a moderation team that shuts people down, and they listen. If there's been at moments where I've said like that's like that's really gross, and I just start calling the person out, and
Hmm.
then the streamer goes, "Oops, we're just gonna ban them now," and it's like, thank you, like yeah, please do, because I know you have a lot going on and you can't see it, but it's like this person's being very uncomfortable. And I
Yeah.
think we need them to leave now. But when you have
Yeah.
those streamers who are more feisty, and I think I would fall into that category, who's just like, just ban them, or like just
Yeah.
deletes their message. Like, I don't care. I don't want them here, right? It's a different type of performance. And then the fumbles are also though very different. Like cozy the cozy streamers can play it off as this fun, cheeky moment of what happened. And I find like the feisty people like get very embarrassed and flustered, right? Like they're like
Yeah.
it's harder to they get more hung up on it. I'm not sure if it's maybe a type A versus type B personality thing, but they get really hung up on this concept of I made the mistake. And it's like, oh, we just need to get past it. Just need to.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that a lot of it does feel like, if the coziness is a performance, then it's like we're all taking part in this performance together. And we'll
Mhm.
see what I create as a performer. And I'm putting on this character of like, ooh, cutesy, I love, whatever, love creating this little space. Then they're also kind of a bystander. They're a little
Mhm.
bit separated from the content itself. Whereas, like, if it's someone who's like, I would say that you are, very connected to your content, even if it's not necessarily you sharing your entire personal life
Mhm.
with the chat. It's you care about this. You care a lot about it, and I think that's, maybe why you would be more like, "Oh, I'm taking fault for that because I did something wrong or I'm having a hard time with how I handled that." And it's like, well, it's because it's you, it's not Alana, like
Mhm.
the character. So I don't know, yeah, because like no one's coming in here and being like, "Oh my gosh, hey, what's up, fat legs chicken boy?" You know what I mean? Like that's not you. Like you're Alana. That's your username,
Mhm.
and so it's just like it's very clear that that's the separation. And if someone's calling you like, "Oh, what's up? It's fat legs chicken boy stream. I don't know what your real name," then it's performance. Like I have a friend
Mhm.
who's like phenomenal and it is like a show. This man, he's got like green screen everywhere. He's got like puppets and shit and you call in, it's like a
Mhm.
talk show thing and it's so like avant-garde. It's like it's incredible. It blows my mind. But like no one knows what his real name is. And I'm like
Mhm.
that's so cool. Like it's so different from what I'm doing where I'm like, yeah, you guys, my mom's in chat like like I'm out here like a lot about me and stuff like that and it's just yeah, it's just so different. So if something weird happened in his chat, he might be able to be like, that was weird, whatever, but if it's like someone's coming into Alana's room and saying, I'm gonna be weird now, and you're like, ew, you're in my space. Like this is me and this is like my room. Like those are my posters and I'm not like faking any of this. It's yeah, I think that might be why if you ever do feel more flustered.
Yeah, no, I do understand what you're saying, and actually we did just get an interesting message where it's I think there's definitely an appeal to both ends of the spectrum regarding this. And I completely agree. I don't think one of these is worse than the other or there's like a
Exactly.
wrong thing. I think it's just an interesting conversation to have, especially regarding how everyone handles it. And like you said, Piper, you and I are very different streamers and we've got a very different vibe going on, but I think that's great and that's good for both of us.
Yeah, but I do think that our approach is very similar. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Because like I do think that, you and I we are ourselves. We're not
Mhm.
doing a character. We're playing this game, we're chatting with chat, we're getting to know people. I don't know that necessarily I would even say that we're super different.
Mhm.
Unless you do think we are like super, super different. I would love to hear your take. But I do think that, yeah, that's what I'm saying is like there's no right or wrong way. It's a personal preference thing. I'm not here to cast aspersions on literally anything because I think that streaming is what you make of it. It could be you don't have any camera, you don't have any mic,
Mhm.
you're just playing FIFA and you're hoping someone comes in and then you can chat in your chat, whatever.
Yeah.
That's also streaming, like it still is. And I think that, VTubers are fascinating to me. I don't know what the hell. That's so amazing. You're gonna be like a little. I saw a guy who was a corgi, like a 3D corgi, and he was playing Rocket League, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is,
Have
but it's
you
still streaming, you
have
know?
you seen the Kronk VTuber? Only
No.
Kronks. He's my favorite. I've rated into him once or twice. I cannot get
What?
over Only Kronks. he's going to get a cease and desist one day, and that is my biggest fear, because I'm like, I know it's coming. You're starting to get more traction. People think you're hilarious. You will be shut down. However,
Yeah.
for the time being, I absolutely love this illegal Disney content. Please keep providing it for us. Like, this is
That's
all I
so
need.
funny. That's so funny. And see, that's still streaming.
Yeah.
Like it's all the umbrella of this is live streaming, and then you can do it however you want, and I think that's gorgeous. I
Mhm.
do think that each one does come with its own unique challenges, its own unique benefits. But it's all the same sort of like blob of media, which is cool.
Well, I know Ashley actually brought up in chat Crunchy Island, who he was a streamer that just did Animal Crossing competitively as best he as best he could, and
Okay.
he had a lot of notoriety, actually, even among, I think, Kotaku or maybe Polygon did an article about him, and one of the quotes is like, the closest thing we have to Animal Crossing esports. He had turned it into like challenges and really fun communities, but nobody knew who this person was. He was just
Hmm.
some guy with some voice, and he made it an esport. And he tweeted out at one point basically saying, hey, one of my mods was trying to basically like hold over the heads of others, that they know who I am in real life. And they are probably going to dox me at some point. So before they do, I'm going to do it first. And
I love it.
he had the doxing stream, essentially. He gave us his full name, his job, career, like face, everything. We know everything about this man now. And it was the most wild thing. And he opens up to this beautiful, like gorgeous, full, like 4K camera, because he was like a video guy in like his past life, and like all this beautiful dynamic display behind him. And he's just like, what's up? And it's like, what are we
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, and part of me is like, as long as it's on his terms, I think that's cool. But part of me is like, oh man, like that person kind of ruined a little bit of the magic. It's a different thing now,
It
you know?
honestly, yeah, they did. You are right. They did ruin some of the magic, but I loved the balls that this guy had. Like,
I
I
think that rocks.
part of me wished like that could have happened to me. Like, I could have been like this big famous like just voice on Twitch, and someone was like, "I'm gonna dox you," and I was like, "Bitch, are ya?"
It's like, yeah, no, watch me dox myself first. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's like Rebel Wilson leaking her own relationship
yeah,
status before the paparazzi could sell the story.
yeah,
And then I remember somebody being like really mad that Rebel Wilson leaked her own relationship. And it's like, you're garbage. I don't know.
yeah.
But it's like on, I don't know if you're ever on Twitter and you see Drill, where it's like no one knows who Drill is.
Hmm.
And somebody tried to dox him, and everyone collectively said, we don't want to know, and just did not pay attention to the guy who doxed him. We were like, we don't care who Drill is.
Hmm.
He's a funny guy. Don't do this, But yeah, the VTuber stuff is so interesting to me, because it's like you could just start a VTuber thing and do a voice modulator, and no one, and it's crazy, and I think that's so fascinating. But I've seen so many people who are like in love with VTubers.
Hmm.
Like Kat sent me this whole thread of people talking about like, I'm in love with this VTuber, like I'm leaving my girlfriend for her.
I think I
And it's
saw
like,
that.
yeah, but I'm like, and nobody in the comments was like, hey, this is weird.
Hmm.
Nobody was like, what are you talking about? Because for me, I was like, that's crazy. That's bananas that you would do that. Like, also, you don't know this person. You literally don't know them. And it's like, it's kind of cool because it, like, does have that additional set of like anonymity.
Hmm.
It's like this story that I'm obsessed with where like Marilyn Monroe used to be able to just like take off her makeup and then she could just walk down the street and no one would know.
Hmm.
Like, but it's Marilyn Monroe. She's like this, she just turns it on and you know who she is on camera. But then she was able, and part of it is that social media was so,
Hmm.
you didn't have it. You didn't have this like constantly permeating, presence in this person's life where you're like, I know everything about them and I follow them to the ends of the earth. But she just was like a normal person who was able to perform super, super well. And that like difference is like so fascinating. Like that just blows my mind to me. Like, because if you saw, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson, you'd be like, holy shit, that's Scarlett Johansson. She's not this person that like turns it on. I don't know. Fascinating.
Well, I think that almost the whole like concept of privacy is like almost scary and exciting, right? Like
Yeah.
getting to keep your privacy while you're streaming, but also acknowledging the fact that if you were to ever get big, that goes away because someone out there is going to be a freaking creep. And they're
Yeah.
gonna get it, and it's probably gonna be like they're gonna start following you in real life, and you're just gonna be like, well, I guess I have to hire a bodyguard now.
You're gonna need it more because they
Yeah,
want it more because they don't have access to it as readily.
yeah.
I don't know. It is really odd. It is really, really odd. I think being in a performance in being in a public space like that. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know what Orville Peck looks like, and I don't really care to know,
Hmm.
frankly, because he's a great performer, and I'm just like I enjoy his music. Maybe people are trying to track him down, but for the most part, I think people respect that, and I think that's cool, and I think that that's something that he establishes up top. That that's the boundaries. I don't want you to know what I look like, and that's cool. Because he gives so much of himself in other ways that I think people were like satisfied.
Well, I think it's tough too because we're in this very odd space where most live streaming on Twitch has to do with gaming. So coming
Mhm.
at it from a gaming perspective, most people don't know who these people are that create the games. The people who compose the music, or, well, I mean, there was that whole fumble with the Mario movie where they didn't give the guy who wrote the DK rap credit. It just comes
Oh
from
shoot,
Donkey Kong 64, and they did this with every video game song that they used. They just said, oh, it's like Super Mario Sunshine. And it's like, there's an actual composer for that video game. Someone wrote that music. And they were just like, nah, don't
that's really
bother.
interesting.
Uh, and the guy, his name is totally blanking from my mind. And it's wild because I've been really following this saga and like on Twitter and such. But yeah, he did like the Banjo Kazooie music. He did some of the most well known video game pieces. And we were just like, nah, get don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, said Illumination Studios. He's got enough fame as it is, even though he really doesn't, because people people don't know the producers on games or the voice actors unless they've used a famous actor. They don't know the people who coded it or who did the art for it. We don't follow these people and pay attention to them. But the moment that you are, for some reason, video game journalists have a stardom. A journalist should not have a stardom unless they've really gone and done some kooky, crazy stuff. Like there's that one guy from the New York Times who's writing a memoir about some of his biggest pieces that he did because he was an investigative journalist that went to the ends of the earth to find people. He can have some fame now that he's like done his career, sure, whatever. I don't care about him. I care about the guys who are sitting around on this round table talk, and people care more about like the Kind of Funny gang, I think it's called, or something, that recently interviewed Phil Spencer. They care more about them and the fact that they've interviewed Phil Spencer over the fact that Phil Spencer admitted that they lost the console wars. That's a huge piece of media. The head of Xbox came out and said, I don't know. I guess we didn't win the console generation, so
That's crazy. Yeah, the fact that people would be more focused on the guys interviewing him than
mhm.
the fact that he said that is bananas and not at all surprising. Um,
And
that's so wild though. Yeah.
it's frustrating because to me, like, I want to give the opportunity and give the platform to other people and other content creators. I don't necessarily want to be really well known, although I do want people to know that this platform's here because I want them to hear people speaking. But it's more about like lifting other people up and like talking to either content creators or creators of video games, hopefully eventually. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's kooky. It's kooky. You should,
Yeah, it is kooky. I know. Yeah, I'm writing down to see if you see me looking down. I'm writing down these like thoughts as they occur to me because you just like really I think hit something there for me. Where I one of my favorite people in the world is Terry Gross.
mm,
She does Fresh Air on NPR if you've ever listened to her, but
mhm.
she is a phenomenal interviewer. I really, really love her because of how she interviews. It's not necessarily like she is a, huge public figure that trying to get to, I'm trying to find her house or something like that. Like, I think that she's just, I really admire her. I did interview this one woman who was a food critic. And I got to hear this interview. It was so interesting. I was talking to this food critic and saying like, well, can you go to a restaurant in New York and they'll just like serve you? And she's like, no. She's like, I cannot walk into a restaurant and people don't know who I am. For a long time, people didn't know who she was. She was like, well, then somebody did, get a picture of me. And this was obviously pre-internet. I think this was like in the 80s or something. She was just a very famous like food critic. And people would just be like, we can't serve you because you're going to do some sort of food critic thing here and you're going to bring us down and we hate that or something like that. And I'm just like, that blew my mind that she was like, yeah, I got a bunch of different wigs that I like to wear. And I'm like, that's so funny. But yeah, so I think that what you're saying about like the people who are doing the interviewing, like Terry Gross is not necessarily a celeb to me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to meet her, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I've loved your work over the, however long, however many years, because I feel like you give a platform to these people. It's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
But you also reminded me of, I don't know if you saw that recent video essay that guy did about, I don't even know what guy, because I'm terrible, but he tried to find the originator of who wrote the little jingle for Disney Channel original movies, or like Disney Channel's little jingle of like, bum,
wow.
bum, bum, bum. And so he went on this like deep dive of like, how do I find this person? Because you just hear it and you go, okay, that's a jingle. I just know that. And it was a really, really well done video essay where he like really hunts down every single possible. He's like, this guy worked at Disney and contracted, and I reached out to him, and he didn't have any leads. So like I reached out to this other person. It was really fascinating. It's like kind of a very story about like he's like, I want to know who wrote this little Disney jingle. And I can try to find the link for you if you're interested. But it's one of the more fascinating like video essays I've ever gotten to see on YouTube. It's so good.
I have some information from chat that it's a defunct land on YouTube. Would that be correct?
Probably.
Evan Perjurer, another guess.
Disney Channel jingle, yeah. Let me find it. Yeah, it's from Defunctland, and it's so good. Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. Definitely give it a look. It's like an hour and a half. It's really, really well done. And he like finds this, no spoilers, but he finds a man
absolutely.
who like gets him closest to possible, and it was like so cool. But yeah,
no,
chat gets it.
yeah, chat gets it. Listen, chat is like all over this. And for those, of you who didn't see in chat, it's Grant Kirkman Hope is the composer of Banjo-Kazooie Grant Kirkhope. I don't know why I added a man in there. Grant Kirkhope did the DK rap and all of Banjo-Kazooie, so or most of it at least. A very well-known composer. Again, kind of forgot about him in the movie, so.
Yeah, but then it's like, does he want that notoriety? Like, I don't know.
He does. He does. He was upset. Yeah,
he definitely does. Okay, for sure.
He came out about it because I guess his son went to go see it, and his son texted him a picture of it and said, "Oh my gosh," and his dad was like, "Well, that fucking sucks."
Let's shut that down right quick.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of people are petitioning for Illumination to add the proper composer names in before the DVD release date. I'm hoping it happens, but we'll see.
Is it a matter of them getting royalties or not, or
no, I think a lot of them just want credit. They just wanted to say like Grant Kirkhope instead of the DK64 rap, which I think is completely valid.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It would be a little crushing to know that like one of your most iconic songs, which is the DK rap, is just like credited to the video game and not to you. It'd be like, oh good, there's my life's work.
Yeah, and then somebody down the line's like, who did this? Well, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah. It was just in a video game, son. Yeah.
Who cares?
Basically. Yeah, that's how it feels for sure.
Yeah. I think a lot of people in general don't care about that kind of thing. Unless you are passionate about this, I don't think that, your average bear is going to go and be like, hey, that's not where that's from. But it's like people who actually really do care. It's like, no, because like you might hear it and be like, oh, I did write that. And then you never find it. You're like, well, that sucks. So I think it's fascinating how many people just don't care. That's what's blown my mind as I've like gotten older and more involved in like content creation stuff.
It's amazing the people who don't care, and it's amazing seeing sort of I guess how in this space, am I even trying? Well,
I
I
don't know.
lost that train of thought.
That's okay. Happens to me literally all the time.
Yeah, in I guess in we'll go with this one in the content creation space. Um, a lot of the streaming performance stuff and what we've been talking about today. I've actually seen some interesting things where people have been coming out on Twitter and saying like, I understand you want a lot of CCV, so concurrent viewership. You
Hmm.
want that big number. They were like, let me tell you, some people with like 30 viewers are making more money than people with 200. You don't know how to do it yet, and you need to treat this like a business and figure it out before you move on. Like
Yeah.
you don't got it. You don't got it yet. I whatever that means.
Yeah. I think that was something that was really interesting when I was working in an agency for social media, was saying that like I would value a micro influencer far more than I would value a macro influencer,
Hmm.
because it's like if you came out and said, "Hey, there's this drink and I love this drink." Say you're like, "Oh, Coke Zero is my favorite drink. I love it so much. Everyone should go drink this new type of Coke Zero." It's so much more likely that you as a person, like 30, 50 people, 10 people, whoever, whatever number, it's like people who know you and people who care about you, they're like, "Oh yeah, Alana said I should try that. Try it." Based like versus like some bigger streamer, like if I'm watching Ots and I'm like, okay, cool, there's like 1,000 people in here, and he's like, I love this new Coca-Cola Zero. I'm be like, fine, sure, like maybe I'll get it, but
Hmm.
I would value your opinion on it more than I would necessarily value like his endorsement of it, because it just feels a little bit more like we did get to do something which was so cool. And I obviously would never take, but it was like we got to work with Fire Dragon, who's so cute, and like you should absolutely streams. He's such a sweetheart. Like
Mm.
he's lovely, and we got to work with him for Fanta because we had a dragon fruit
Oh
flavor. It was
yeah,
like a release of like, oh, what is this mysterious new
yeah.
flavor? Like, and we got Fire Dragon, and it was so cute, like watching all of his chat like rally around him. They were
Hmm.
like, "We love you got this opportunity. This is so cool." And like kind of being on the other side of it, because I was like, because I've seen him on Twitch like just as a guy, and like being approaching it not from the point of view of like, oh, I'm working at an agency, but approaching it from like, oh, I've also done streams and I know like how exciting this is for his
Hmm.
chat and for him that he's getting this opportunity. Like it makes it so much more special. And then the people in his chat are like 100 times more likely to like go try the new flavor than to be like, oh, Ninja said that the new flavor is great. We should all go try it because Ninja likes it. Maybe to some extent, but it was really, really awesome seeing that like level of excitement because people were genuinely so happy for him. I don't know. It just feels like that same thing of like quality over quantity.
Yeah. I completely get that, and it makes a lot of sense actually. I'm glad that I brought that up because you as like someone who's worked in marketing would understand that perspective a little bit better. But I've seen a lot of people, interestingly enough, like around on Twitter, all these like cozy indie games who just like randomly put out recently. They all seem to be coming out at the same time. They're like, "Do you want a media key?" And then they're getting like millions of hits, and they're like, "I didn't know people wanted my game." And I'm like, bestie, people have been following you for 2 years for this game, this one game.
Is it the Paleo Pines game? Because I'm so excited about that one.
Paleo Pines, Mail Time. There's like a couple plant games coming out or something, and every single one, yeah, they just like went absolutely feral. And I'm like, did you not realize, as everyone's been talking about this game like online, or maybe it's because we sit in our discords and we talk about it, like people have been talking about these for ages. Like we're
Hmm.
waiting. We're waiting.
Oh yeah, everyone's excited about it, which I think is really cool. It's cool to see that built-in fandom almost because like
Hmm.
I'm in the Paleo Pines Discord that exists before the game has even come out.
Hmm.
Because it's just like it's interesting seeing the like not only content creation but creation of anything.
Yeah.
Um, building that up from the ground up, and I think that Kickstarters have helped a lot. I think that like stuff like that has allowed people to take a little bit more ownership of that media or that thing that they're creating,
Hmm.
where you're like, oh, I'm in grassroots like level. And I think that there's a level of pride associated with that, for me at least.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And there's definitely like it's almost this weird like hipster feeling of like I've been here since the beginning, so I've liked them since before you knew them.
Before they sold out, yeah,
But
100%.
but in gaming, it's like we're given this really intimate like view into what's going on, especially with indie gamers, like indie game companies. So it's neat to see like all the little steps being taken as they're happening because it's gone from being just like a couple gifs on Twitter or a couple pictures on Twitter to like you said, like full discords, uh, and just like people everywhere like following along, beta testing, giving opinions, answering polls, and it's almost like they're crowdsourcing like a huge part of their game.
Yeah, definitely. And testing for bugs and being like, oh, well, I'm able to talk directly to the devs in a way that
Hmm.
is so cool, especially if you are like a huge fan of games in general. You can't do that with like the big giant studios and say like, oh, well, hey, I'm playing the Call of Duty, and I'm going to give you direct feedback, and you're the person who will fix it.
Yeah.
You don't have that opportunity. It's like super cool to be able to, as like a gaming nerd, kind of like get in under the hood with them and be
Yeah.
like, okay, like let's figure this out together because I want this game to be as good as it can be, and you do too, and like let's work on it together. I think it's been a really cool, yeah, more recent kind of opportunity that we've been given, which I love.
And there's been like very interesting sort of developments on the AAA side as well. And obviously, those studios have a lot more problems on them being larger scale companies. But there
Mhm.
was an opportunity around the 10-year anniversary of Blizzard, or maybe it was, I think it was World of Warcraft, the 10-year anniversary of World of Warcraft. They did this documentary that was so fascinating to watch and to see these really historical moments that a lot of people had no idea were going on. Two that I can think of is there was a moment where they were describing how they did Cataclysm. And I talk about this a lot because it's very fascinating. So, for those who don't know, Cataclysm completely changed the world in World of Warcraft. The Deathwing went through and like destroyed everything. It's also considered one of the worst expansions and when the decline of World of Warcraft started to happen.
Oh,
However, uh, they at the time did not have the technology to run two versions of the world. And they also didn't have the technology to back everything up. So they decided that they were just going to overwrite all the data on launch day with no official test of whether it would work or not and no official backup. They had every engineer there, like at midnight, basically waiting to see what was going to happen. And they just crossed their fingers and hoped for the best, hit launch, and it worked by some miracle, World of Warcraft did not die in that moment. And they actually genuinely thought they might, like, they were like, if this fails, we're going to have to take the game offline for like 3 months, probably. Like, we don't know what we're going to do. And it was just very cool to see that. And then another, I don't remember if it was directly from this video, but there was one to do with Legion and how they created a new class. And this is sort of what I've always loved about games is they couldn't figure out how to make it work. And this he goes up to this senior developer and is like, I'm stuck. He's like, I don't think we can have the jump mechanic on the Demon Hunter. And he said, but that's the point. You have to have it in there. It's part of the lore.
yeah.
And so he pulls an SNES with a copy of Mega Man out of his desk and says, sit down, we're going to play Mega Man, and they played Mega Man, and that's how they figured out how to tune the jump mechanic correctly, was because the slide in Mega Man is similar to the jump mechanic. And I was like, this is why games are so cool. It's such a rich history, and in a sense why streaming could be that cool too, because we already have such a rich history starting from content creation. And it's like, let's think about things like Crunchy Island doxing himself, or that time that Ninja went to a gaming tournament and lost 300,000 subscribers.
That's wild. I don't think I know about that. That's
He
crazy.
wasn't live for 2 days, and he was at
Oh,
a
shoot.
tournament. He was at a tournament. 300,000 people unfollowed him.
Wow.
Could you imagine? Like, you don't go live for 2 days and 300,000 people stop. They're like, bye, bitch. You weren't good enough for me.
Yeah, I need you to churn out content. It's
Oh
like
my
at that point,
gosh.
yeah, oh geez, that's so stressful. That just like, oh, yeah,
Was
the idea just makes my stomach turn because it's like, I mean, at that point, maybe it might be like a drop in the bucket. Uh, but
Hmm.
maybe not, like, because I do think that there is a level of like, you have to meet my expectations, and then you
Hmm.
kind of don't view them as a person, and it's like you're a little content machine. And it's like, no, he's like a person who has to go like have interests and stuff, and like, I think about that in terms of stardom and stuff, like seeing how people, okay, no one come after me, but how people talk about Taylor Swift.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
seeing people are like, oh, it's rumored that she's dating this new person. And
Mm.
everyone's like, oh, we don't approve. And it's like, who cares if you
Hmm.
don't approve? She doesn't know you. You don't know her. You don't control her. She's a grown woman, like that. It just blows my mind being like, the Swifties say no. And it's like, she's never said Swifty. It's like one of those things where it's like, none of those words are in the Bible. Like, she's never said Swifty. She does not claim Swifties. And then it's like they have claimed this ownership that is just really fascinating to see. Um, yeah, but I feel like people have that same ownership over streamers, and it's harder when it is interactive and it is that give and take. Because she's not going to do that with her
A,
fans.
a very real example of that happening actually in the content creation space is Markiplier. It's
Mm,
my understanding that Markiplier had multiple girlfriends that he did not disclose, but they discovered them basically, like freaking creeps, and said, "We don't like her. Get rid of her," and started harassing her to the point, and I think these were multiple women to the point where they broke up because
ugh,
these poor girls could not tolerate the amount of vitriolic like hate that they got, and they were not even in
yeah.
the spotlight. It was just because he did these funny FNAF videos, and I actually don't hate his content. I don't personally watch it, but he
Mhm.
made all this content and just got this insane amount of fandom. And like, you want to talk about a feral community, that's it. That
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that's the biggest example I can think of is that guy.
That's that's so wild because yeah, it's like, okay, so you claim that you're like you love this person, whatever. But do
Hmm.
you respect them,
Hmm.
and do you respect their autonomy, or do you just like the idea that you've created of them? And it's just like creepy, bro.
It
I don't
is.
know. It's just like you don't know them, and you don't like, it's like coming into their chat and saying you're my best friend. No, they're
Yeah.
not. They're not. Well, you're not their best friend, and they don't know you. I
And
don't
I
know.
think I think a lot of people, because we have things like VidCon and TwitchCon where content creators can so easily access their community. And I always get so nervous when I see people saying, I'm going to TwitchCon, these are the meetups I'm hosting, because my first question is, who's the security? How are you managing it? And they're like, well, I don't have any. Girl, you got like 200 people tuning in live every stream. You better get someone. Like,
Yeah.
someone's going to show up and it's going to be creepy.
It's gonna be creepy, absolutely. And I'm lucky where I've gotten to meet a lot of people from Twitch who
Mhm.
are streamers and aren't streamers, people who, I have gotten to meet over the course of, 2.5 years of streaming or whatever. And I've really loved it. But yeah, I knock on wood have not experienced something like that where it's like you don't want to just tell people, hey, I'm gonna be at this place.
Yeah.
Come find me, like because you want to have a little bit. I'll post about things after the fact and say like, "Oh, I had a great weekend with this person." And it's always someone that I know and that I trust, obviously. But yeah, it is such a risk. It is crazy to see that and be like, "Oh, well, someone's going to just show up and
Yeah.
just be a creep, and then what, Got to figure it out."
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, it's the and then what is really part of it. And how do you manage when you've welcomed in during your performance these people that even just in the space of your Twitch chat, right? We talked about like banning people basically. Like, everyone handles it differently. And I think that's one of the really almost dangerous parts of Twitch is everyone handles it differently.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same way that it's like, yeah, every stream, regardless of the context, is still a stream. It's like, yeah, it's still
Hmm.
banning. But even if someone's banned, they can still watch your stream, which is something that I definitely don't love.
Hate that. Didn't know
Hate
that
that.
fact. Hate that fact.
Yeah, they can just not chat. That's the only difference. And ban
Wow.
evasion, yeah, ban evasion's one thing. But like, yeah, if you're in an incognito browser, you just pull it back up and then what's gonna stop them from rewatching it? You know? And it's terrifying. Yeah, yeah. So sort of like like plates are shifting underneath you. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that that is not like you can't just IP ban someone. It's like they'll create another account and
Mm-hmm.
then they'll just watch you from the other account or whatever. You know, it's like there's only so far you can go for your own security's sake. But you know, I think it's just it's tough. It is a tough space to be in, and you're like you just have to balance like, okay, does my love of streaming outweigh the risk of running into creeps like this? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe it doesn't, and if it doesn't for someone, then don't do it. You don't have to. Like figure out another way to express that or something because it is a risk. It genuinely is every single time.
Well, Jenny just brought up in chat the little Simsy story where she had someone ring her doorbell while she was live to see if it was actually her house and things like that. That's not new at all. Like, yeah, it's obviously like extremely uncomfortable, and your reaction is my reaction internally. But I even think of a bit of a controversial YouTuber, I guess, at this point, and not a bit of definitely, is Boogie2988. And he talks about how he had multiple people show up to his house and just walk up and ring the doorbell and want to talk to him. And it's like, yeah, you can't do that. And
That's
that's
crazy.
why I think it's really important to protect like who you are and your identity. Like people know what city I'm in. Uh they will never know what gym I go to. My favorite hoodie is my gym hoodie right now that they gave to me when I signed up. So comfortable. I will never wear that while streaming.
No, of
Like
course.
I
Yeah.
hide it. I like put it on my bed next to me so you can't see it. I'm like this is the hidden thing because despite
Yeah.
the fact that there are a ton of locations, like what happens, right? Like if someone really wants to know, it'd be like, "Oh, this is
They'll
good.
figure it out.
Yeah. Love
Yeah, and that's
this."
why I've seen people be like, you know, if you're gonna drink Starbucks, don't do it on stream because you can look up the store number and it's
Yeah.
you usually probably go to the closest store near you.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh well, you know, it's creepy. And it's all these little things that like creeps will figure it out, which is
Mhm.
unfortunate. Like I don't know if you've seen that guy on TikTok who like can identify like the actual street address of where a different video has been taken. Like I saw someone
Yes.
identify like there was like a little pig in a car or
Yeah.
something, and he was like, "This is the street that pig was
Yep.
driving down." And you're like, "How?" Or
I've
people have
seen I've
actually
seen
figured
those
out
guys.
where
Yeah.
Lo-Fi Girl lives.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? People figured out they've doxed Lo-Fi Girl. She lives in France. She's an animated character, and they figured out where she lives. It just blows my mind, bro.
It's very unsettling and it doesn't help this concept and this idea of we're just letting people peek into our lives and they're just like, I'm gonna track you down now.
Yeah,
Sorry if
yeah,
I'm a murderer.
yeah. Sorry, yeah, my bad. I'm a murderer, though.
Didn't mean to. Piper, I don't mean to keep you your whole night. But is there anything else you think we should talk about?
I don't know. I guess I was interested. So I definitely have experienced like improv helping me in a lot of spaces
Mm-hmm.
in terms of interpersonal relationships, in terms of jobs, in terms of you know like applying a lot of those practices. I'm curious to hear about how have you experienced I'm curious to hear if streaming has helped you in any of those other spaces in life, if martial arts I know is something that's very important to you. If you've taken any of those sort of practices and techniques, even mentally, and applied them to streaming or to your everyday life. I'm curious to hear about that.
So I think that's a really great question. I can answer it sort of in two parts, if I may.
Yeah.
The first, I'll tackle the martial arts thing. So I am very new to martial arts. I am by no means a pro. I started like last September and I didn't go for a huge chunk in the winter due to a bunch of different reasons. But privacy, so we won't talk about it. But one of my favorite concepts of martial arts, because I grew up watching martial arts films and knowing of it, and I decided I really wanted to just like practice it finally because I always wanted to do karate as a kid and I never did. Like I just never did. And now as an adult, I was like, I'm gonna do whatever I feel like, so I'm gonna go practice martial arts. And my whole family has been like, that's a little kooky, except for my dad, who's like, yeah, what'd you learn this week, kid? um But no, one of the big things that I think a lot of people have probably heard the interview from Bruce Lee, and it's called The Lost Interview, and he talks about like be water, my friend, and it's the adaptability that is needed in those moments, especially when you're getting into a fight with someone. The hope and the dream is that you practice these basic movements. Like you're not doing crazy combos the whole time. You have to learn how to string things together, but you are just practicing like lunge punches and like crosses and jabs like over and over and over and over and over again, because the hope and the dream is that you've practiced it so many times that when someone swings at you, your body takes over and can swing back, because most people don't have that fight instinct initially, right? Like it's either the fight or flight, and a lot of people tend to flight or freeze, right? Like I think there's actually three reactions, but enabling that fight mode and keeping a rational head is really tough. And I think that's sort of something that I've always tried to like bring to the table in my life, the whole be water, my friend, but it's really, really like in streaming, that is something that I use a lot because it is so unpredictable, everything that's going to happen. And I think we all like to have control in our life. You don't get it. Sorry. It's taken the moment you hit go live, it's totally out of your control. What happens, happens. It's all part of it. Like be water, my friend. And so I think that's helped a lot. But another thing that actually really has helped me in the content creation that I do is I worked as a journalist for many years. It's something that we're actually going to be talking about this Wednesday because it's my birthday on Tuesday. Happy birthday to me. So
Yay!
we're going to do my birthday stream on Wednesday, though. And I want to talk a lot about sort of, I guess, my past in the industry and what I did and the mistakes that I made. And I guess sort of like getting the skeletons out of the closet in a sense, right? Like kick it all out and just say like this is everything I did wrong, and this is why I think it's important to talk about these things, because everybody makes mistakes, especially in the journalistic space. It's very difficult to be completely cut and dry. But having those interview skills pre-established, having research skills pre-established, and knowing sort of how to make those connections within the gaming space, because developers are kooky. You can send them an email and they'll be like, not yet, but hit me up in a few months. And so you hit them up in a few months and it becomes, listen, it went longer than we thought it would. Hit me up in a few months. And then 2 years down the road, you finally get an interview and you're like, so not relevant anymore. Thank you very much. Really loved it. Loved it. But you kind of have to keep like this weird ongoing dialogue going with them to get anything out of them. But then you end up in a odd space, right? Of, are you now friends for keeping in touch with this person? Like your little email pen pals, or are you not? So I think having that, but that's a very direct, I guess, correlation and relationship to something in the gaming space would be like video game journalism. So that's, I mean, I also did agriculture journalism after that, and I feel like that kind of brought it back a little bit as well, because that was way more professional and
Little ground
properly
you.
paid. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a question that I would love to figure out, is how to value figure that out. This is my year of not undervaluing. I'm putting it out there.
I'm so sorry, Piper. Your mic cut out a little bit. Could you
Oh yeah.
repeat for
No,
us?
yeah. I'm so sorry. I don't know if it's a noise gate, but yeah, just this is my year of not undervaluing yourself. I'm trying to figure out how to value myself properly, which I know we've talked about it a little bit, but yeah.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think you were a little flustered when I came to you and said, I'm paying you this much for the emotes. This is what I would like.
You don't have to, but okay. And you're like, no, but actually though.
It's really important to value, especially when you're such a physical art form, the amount that you price yourself at and being competitive. And your emotes are absolutely gorgeous. I think
Thanks.
almost every single emote, if not every single emote, not the animated ones, but almost every emote in this chat is all you and something that you've designed at some point. And I spent way too much money in your Etsy store, but that's totally fine.
I think you spent a beautiful amount of money. I would never hold it against you. No, I love it. Hell yeah. Oh yeah, I'm looking at all these guys now. No, I love them so much. Yeah, but yeah, we'll figure it out. Figure it out together.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because like you said, like undervaluing, and even looking at well, I think something that's super valuable is I'm actually working on putting together sort of a media kit and media package for people who are interested in either coming onto my podcast, which is my main pull that I'm trying to get. Like, come on, developers, let's get going.
Yeah, yeah.
Or just having like a game featured on stream, right? And it's really, really scary, in my opinion, to put out your CCV when it's under 50. To me,
Right. Yeah.
50 feels like the good amount, right? Like when you're at 50, you're comfortable. This is when
Hmm.
people are really looking at you, paying attention to you. This is a potential new and upcoming streamer. When you're at like 15, 10, 5, it's like, oh mama, I don't know. I don't know
Sure.
what's happening. Like,
Yeah. That was something that I did talk about I talked about with a friend recently where we were talking about CCB, and they were like, "Man, I can't picture," because I told them that like
mm-hmm,
the threshold for partner, right, is like 70,
mm-hmm,
70 plus. And they're like, "I can't picture 70 people
mm-hmm,
in a room." Like that's a really sizable like if you're doing stand up and you've got 70 people in your audience, that's a good audience.
mm-hmm,
And for that to be your average is bananas. So yeah, I think that's something that I think people offline don't necessarily comprehend, because to
mm-hmm.
them it's just a number, but it's like that's 70 people's eyes that you are s- you know they're looking at you, you're being perceived by that many people. That's crazy. So yeah, it just CCV is such a weird, I don't know, wobbly, like I can't picture it, I can't pin it down as like a concept.
I think it's tough for a lot of people to like conceptualize it, and also, you know, it's probably the most difficult thing to talk about, but it's the most important number. Like, streamers never want to see that number live. I think there are times when it's really valuable to have that number live, because there are definitely points when your Twitch stream dips, and I think you need to take
Hmm.
a look at it and seriously go, okay, what is happening to the content to make it dip? Is it just because I've been live for this amount of hours and people have lives? Is it because they did this? Is it because they did that? Like, are people jumping in just for the just chatting segments? Are they coming in just for the game? Like, where are we at, right?
Yeah.
But besides, like, once you hit affiliate, and even affiliate, I would argue, is not that important. But once you hit affiliate, the only number that matters past that is concurrent viewership. Everything else can just be thrown out the window. Your followers don't matter.
Yeah,
How
and
many
that's
are
something
showing
that
up?
yeah, we've had to tell people that with the agency essentially
Mm-hmm.
is like people are like, "Well, we need to get our follower numbers up." I'm like, "Follower is a vanity. Followers don't matter. You can buy followers. It doesn't, you can get bots to
Absolutely.
follow you. But if the engagement is what matters, the percentage of people who are
Absolutely.
engaging with your content is the most important thing. And
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to hear that. Like brands are so deaf to that. It's so wild where you'll just say like, you know, you know, it doesn't matter if we have 500 followers if we're
Mm-hmm.
getting 2 likes. It doesn't matter. It looks bad. It looks even
Yeah.
worse if we have more followers and no likes. You got to make content that is engaging,
Yeah.
is, you know, people want to interact with, and that's kind of the key. And that's, I think, the key for marketing and for Twitch, because you're essentially just marketing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's, I just like, I could go on forever about the whole marketing yourself thing, because it's really frustrating to me to hear these people say, like, I want to make it as a Twitch streamer. I want to do this. I want to do that. And every single person will respond, like, in the room will be like, we'll do YouTube then. And they're like, but I don't want to do YouTube. You don't have to do YouTube. You don't
No.
have to. YouTube, if you have good content, YouTube is almost a surefire way to get it out there. There's
Hmm.
something about the way that YouTube has been done that if it is good content, it will find the eyes and ears of the right people. I could not say the same for TikTok, because I think it ends up in the wrong algorithms all the time, because there's bullies out there and they're awful. You can't say the same for Twitter, because it just doesn't go anywhere half the time, and then randomly one will blow up and nobody knows what's going on. You definitely cannot say the same for Instagram. There's a lot of really valuable creators that I follow on Instagram who've been doing this for years and have tweaked and are super professional at this point, and no one pays attention. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's it's YouTube.
Yeah, which is frustrating that it is like,
Hmm.
no, that is the answer.
Yeah.
You might not like it, but that's the answer, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's well, you do video editing as well. You know, it's a whole different skill set, and
Mhm.
in a way you're rounding and developing your portfolio in a way that for me, it's not super applicable. My day job is as a tradie. Like, hooray, I can edit videos now. Woohoo! Like, that's not going to help me in my day to day, but I think for a lot of people, it's actually running of a portfolio. And if you could look at it that way, it might be a little bit more
Yeah,
enticing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yay. Hmm.
No, well, if you don't have anything else to say,
I mean, I could talk all night. I could
well,
talk all night long, but Shonik is hungry, I think.
well, I know that we're gonna find someone to. Oh, it's this person's birthday.
Aw,
I feel like if it's a birthday, we should go there.
we should.
I don't know if I've ever rated this person before.
Who is it?
Sorry, that's always a nerve-wracking thing.
It
Kate
is always in there.
Anderson.
Oh, Kate is cool.
There you go, Kate.
Absolutely.
You heard it here first. Kate is cool.
I'm endorsing Kate.
Before we get going, Piper, real quick, what is your streaming schedule for the viewers?
Streaming schedule? There's TBD, but mostly I have been streaming almost every 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. It kind of depends. I'm trying to figure it out. Like I said, trying to that balance. And thank you for the shout out. Oh my god. But yes, happy I love this happy birthday raid message. It's so cute. I'm sorry, now I'm in your chat. But
No,
yeah,
that's
so I will keep posting in Discord. I'll be, around, but for the most part it's most every weekday.
okay. Almost every weekday. You heard it. You heard it here first, chat. We're
It
gonna.
depends.
It depends. It depends. But Piper streams a lot of Stardew Valley. She streams a lot of crazy, cute, fun things. I can't see all of my messages, so I don't know when Ray's going to take us away. I think it's soon. But thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful day. We'll be live tomorrow. We're going to start playing Yakuza. So thank you everyone for being here.
Happy early birthday.
Bye.